does something just a little bit more efficient. You know, it's worth it to me.
Takes a picture a little bit better or whatever.
Or just like the email flow, man. That interface keeps getting better.
Have you noticed that the phone, like intentionally is screwed up after you have it for a long time? And,
Yeah.
and if you don't upgrade it,
Battery, everything. The upgrades like make it worse.
Yeah, well, Apple's even admitted to saying that, yeah, they slow them down, but it's for you though. Like, no, we promise it's to take care of you. It's like, well, how are you making my phone shittier? How's that making me
I
better?
had that theory like a few years ago, and then more recently people have like proved it. I
Yeah,
guess.
they had to
guess it's
admit
true.
it. They said it was to prevent like the battery from like being over exhausted or something. So they're like, okay, you got us. We'll replace your battery for $30.
My phone just gets flat out stupid after a while though. It doesn't even like right now. My phone, for some reason, when I'm in my house, it won't stay on Wi-Fi. It won't stay connected to Wi-Fi. It just boots it off automatically.
Yeah, when the 10 came out, my phone would connect to the gym's Wi-Fi, and then when I'd go home, it said I had the wrong password. And so when I put the right password in, it was like, oh, there's no internet. I had
How
to
bad
turn
have
my
you
phone
guys
off.
gotten screwed over by passwords? I get killed.
Yeah.
I get killed by them. And then people are like, how come you just don't use the same password? It's like, I've tried that before. It doesn't work.
See, I don't do the iPhones, but the Samsungs are the exact same thing. I got the ghetto Androids.
You're on the other side.
Yeah. If you don't have a GED, you gotta
Playing for the other team.
Yeah. I always have to fix Stephanie's passwords. So
What do we got going on over here, Alberto Nunez? It's been a while since you've been on the show.
We're going.
Yeah, we've been going.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We recorded you going to the bathroom, bro.
this whole time.
Okay.
It was sick.
It was a good solid stream.
We got the P test done.
Yeah.
Same old, man. It's just, the scale keeps growing. That's basically it.
Scale's going up.
Yeah, dude, you pimping it big in here, man.
Scaling up.
Man.
Well, your scale's going up when you weigh yourself, and my scale's going up.
Hey, no. You know what I saw? It was
Scaling up.
Speaking of scale, it was that video you posted up with Stan. He was doing those dumbbells, and like,
Oh, shit.
dude, I couldn't believe that was you.
Oh, yeah. I was wearing a fat suit.
That's what he used to look like.
Isn't that crazy?
It's insane.
That was wild. I know, when I was doing the bodybuilding show, I got a lot of encouragement from other bodybuilders and stuff, and I didn't really think that was going to happen. I guess maybe I just didn't think about it, or maybe I just thought, like, that's
People
kind
are
of what they...
territorial,
Yeah. I thought maybe that's what they do, and maybe they'll be like, who's this guy, trying to do this or whatever. But everybody was really encouraging, and then I saw some of the posts that you made. I thought it was really cool. You're like, no one goes over the middle harder than Mark Smelly Bell. And I was like, man, that's freaking great, especially coming from you. I've seen how chiseled you get on stage, so that was a huge compliment.
No, you did it right, and that's the big thing. It's like when I do your powerlifting thing, it's kind of humorous, but I try to pay respect to the sport and do it right. And that was one thing you did. You did really well. You emptied out the tank, man.
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to, say, hey, like, this is what I'm doing. And I wanted people to be like, yeah, okay, he's probably going to kind of do it. And he'll probably look, like, decent. But I wanted people to be like, damn, like, he really improved a lot. So that was the goal. And I felt like I couldn't have done better. I felt like I put everything I could into it.
Well, you do enough things, like, with your lifting, with your company, and a lot of it, I mean, if you stop and you think about it, it'll scare the shit out of you, right? But if you just keep your feet moving, right, and just commit to whatever it is that you want to do, it's crazy what you can get done. So, I mean, it didn't surprise me by any means, but to see the transformation, that was pretty freaking wicked, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We were talking a little earlier about some natural bodybuilding. Now here's when everybody tunes out, right?
Yeah, they're done. They're done.
Everybody just shut it. They just shut the damn podcast right off. Like, natural what?
We don't dunk. We do layups.
Natural bodybuilding? Like, the two things don't even go together. It sounds unnatural even to say it.
Yep.
But I kind of had a question for you. And do you think sometimes the natural athletes can get a little bit better conditioning or end up with a better conditioning look? And if so, like, what do you think the reason might be for that?
I think to start off is just we're not working with a whole lot of muscle. So
You're skinny.
Yeah. To put it bluntly, that's what it is.
Some of you guys ain't skinny, though. You don't look skinny on stage. You look jacked.
Oh, that's another. So you can grow two ways. You can kind of grow this way, or like think about when they discovered the pyramids for the first time, right? They were like all covered in sand, right? And then you dig around it, and that's a way to, like, put on some size in a way. It gives you that illusion for sure.
Right.
I've done NPC shows, and I'm always at the bottom of the weight class. But when we get up on that stage, I'm headhunting, man. Like, I look bigger because of the conditioning. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, we don't have a lot of muscle. So it's like, you better do this one thing that you could potentially do as well as the guys that are on the enhanced side.
So you might as well just get as lean as you possibly can.
So we've kind of discovered ways of getting that done. It's improved a lot over the last 10 years for sure. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then that was something you were alluding to, was the fact that I just think it's a little bit more straightforward physiologically, you know? Right. Once I get into shape, I'm just in shape and I look like that every day and I can compete every single day of the week. So yeah, it's way more predictable. Yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense. It makes more sense than even in the words that you put it in. It's hard to put it in words, but like, for example, somebody that is enhanced on a day when they're feeling good and they got a little extra stuff in their system, they can grab the 150s and they can throw them around like they're nothing.
Yeah.
On days when maybe they don't feel so great and maybe they have less stuff, maybe they competed and it's, a couple weeks after the show, they stopped taking stuff. Maybe those 150s turn into 120s. But if you're a natural athlete, on a bad day, the 120s just turn into the 110s, or just a couple less reps. But it's, I agree with what you said. It seems to be there's more consistency to the whole thing. Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, though. I think regardless of how you do it, I don't think people really appreciate the wear and tear that it does put on your body.
Yeah.
Both sides, we experience slightly different things, but man, you're fucked after a good season, and if you did it right.
The thing I always think is kind of crazy is how people say, when you take stuff that you recover faster.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I even have the slightest clue on what the fuck steroids do. I really don't know. I know they make you bigger and stronger, and that's about it. And I haven't seen like a lot of research and stuff on it, but in terms of it helping you to recover faster, I think that people think because you take them, then you don't get sore and you just recover from your workout and you're fine. Which that's definitely not true. You still get very, very sore. And I would say that the soreness I experience nowadays is the same as when I was natural. There's absolutely no difference there. I would say that if I was to pinpoint it and put my finger on it, it allows you to do some stuff that you normally wouldn't be able to do. But also in saying that, it's just a boost. And then once you get that boost, and then it's like, well, you're still in the same spot. Or not in the same spot, but you're boosted further ahead, but you can't take a lot more and keep boosting beyond that. Yeah. You hit your power boost and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, when I speak to, cause I think especially now more than ever, now that, there's so many divisions in physique sports, and I'm cool with that because it's more inclusive. So someone can pick something, and make that their goal, and I think that's fantastic. But the bodybuilders, we kind of we do stick together,
right?
And when I talk to one of my homies who's he's enhanced and he's 4 or 5 weeks out, he's just as wrecked as I am when I'm 4 or 5 weeks out.
Right.
It's like you said, it's a different baseline. That's all.
Right.
Yeah. But
what has kept you sticking with being a natural athlete?
So I was close to jumping ship a few times.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
We almost got you.
Yeah. I was very close, in fact. What
was going through your head at that time? And how long ago was that?
This was maybe 2007, 2008. I wanted to get my natural pro card just to say that I was able to do something that way. And then once that was taken care of, it's let's go ahead and go on that side and try to do something there. And it wasn't until Lane Norton was my coach, and
never heard of him.
When he got me, I was so wild. There was no structure. Just fly. I had never had a meal plan or really did anything. It was just me and hard work. It seemed basically. He got that under control for me. I counted calories and watched what I ate for the first time ever. I got into fantastic shape, and I was like, wow, my body allows me to do this. And at the time, it was very unique because guys weren't getting in shape the way they do now. So I'm like, wow, maybe I should just stick here a little bit longer. And
Yeah, you'd get really shredded. I mean, striations through the triceps, the shoulders, the chest. You'd have striations everywhere you could have a striation. You have, and then some.
Yeah, I like to get to the point. I got veins in my glutes. I won't get up there until I got veins in my glutes. So that's
You're making me hungry.
some really dry, walnutty looking glutes is the goal. But that was so unique at the time. And
walnut glutes. You write that down, Andrew?
I was like, ooh, that sounds like an awesome dish.
Yeah, the nutcracker.
Like, I'll have the walnut glutes, please.
But now it's a dime a dozen. But at the time, it wasn't. And so that kind of locked me in. Was the fact that I was able to get that lean. And I think now I've just become the poster boy for my sport. That I'm here, and I'm gonna keep working on this end because I found my specialty. I found something that I'm good at, so I'm just gonna stick with it. So yeah, there we go.
Do you feel like you're still able to improve?
Oh man,
I feel like you're still able to get better.
Yeah, I could whoop that dude so bad. So I got 4th place in that show, 4th place, and I'd rock that dude. So yeah, it's subtle, but I think honestly the biggest thing at this point is that it is so hard to improve that it's the cognitive side of things that I get from trying to make my bodybuilding better. Like when I do that, like other things seem to take off in my life.
Somebody who's listening to this right now and they're like on the fence about whether they want to take something or not. I think this is really important. You guys pay attention to this message because I'm not going to say that you should or shouldn't, but I will say that in the shoes that Alberto's in right now and the shoes that I'm in right now, guess what? It's both hard for us to make progress. So if you choose the route to get on stuff, you got to realize, look, man, I might end up being on it forever. Yeah. Because what's my choice?
Yeah.
My choice is just to be a lot less than I was yesterday, which who the hell wants that? So that ends up being a really difficult thing that I feel like not enough people are mentioning when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs. It's like, well, you use them, and then what do you do? And so maybe you used them for a couple shows or something, but are you going to really stop and like have a worse physique and be less strong, and some of these things could happen. So those are all things to consider when you're on the fence and you're thinking about doing them, is that you could end up, if you really are addicted to the iron, you could end up being addicted to steroids because how are you going to come off of them? What's your plan?
Yeah, and it's just a different end goal at the end. That's what it is. It's still, dude, how many times have anything you've done? Like, you're like, most people would have said, fuck it, I'm done at this point.
Right.
And you just keep rolling with it. So it really depends on what your end goal is. But either way, there's a lot of people that want the exact same thing you want, and you're going to have to hustle. Because I know a lot of guys that, like, they jumped on, they're like, oh, this is my chance. Like, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, I'm hit it up big. And they just end up being some mediocre dude that, because they didn't have all the other parts in place.
Right. Yeah, that has to be in place beforehand. Mm-hmm. You also like to throw around some heavy weights. I know that, like, right now you're kind of bulking up, getting thick.
Yeah.
And you got some goals to hit up a powerlifting meet?
Yeah. I've been cruising a little bit. I partially tore a forearm in July.
Damn.
And so I've been having to kind of shut it down.
Steroids, that's proof that you're not natural, by the way. And the veins.
We're going over the muscle tears. We have quite a few between you and I.
Yeah, we were like old war veterans talking over here.
This is the 20th year of training, though, man. So I know when to shut it down. And this year I've kind of shut it down just a little bit. But start of the year, I was like, all right, let's get some new muscle tears. I'm 30. I'm be 36 next March.
Oh, damn.
So it's up there, man.
Keeping that young look, though. It must be the hair. That long hair is keeping you young.
Take the skin steroids. That's what it is.
What's going on with that hair?
Ooh, I thought it was going to be low maintenance, man, but now it just became my thing. And it's like, I feel like I got to keep it for the people. When I got off the airplane.
It's kind of like a beard. When someone has a beard, everyone gets all excited about it. You can't lose it, really.
Like, the people want to see the hair, so I got to keep it around.
It's like Smokey with his beard. Like, if he trims it or something, people get all upset.
That dude gets weekly haircuts. So that's what I thought this was going to be. I thought it was going to be low maintenance, but you have to do all those things that, like, have to
you need special care for that?
No, not really. Not really.
Not too bad?
Coconut oil. Yeah, there we go. That's basically all I use.
You throw some coconut oil in there?
That's it.
We're watching a video of you chucking around the 150-pound dumbbells. What's going on with that?
Oh, my God. That was so reckless. Yeah, I've actually gone. I can't do it right now, but it's a forearm thing. But I've done the 160s for a set of 4. So not bad for a guy 190.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's just absolutely fascinating with how you can make the human body look. Do you use kind of traditional bodybuilding techniques? Do you use powerlifting? I mean, it looks like you're kind of lifting pretty heavy, or do you use a combination of things?
You know, at the end, it's like what muscles look cool, but they move joints. That's the main thing they do, right? That's their specialty. So if you progress performance-wise, even though it is a subjective sport, it's like, guess what? It starts to show on your physique. So I've always like taken methods from powerlifters that they use to like get stronger and apply them to my training, and it's helped me a lot because I don't know. I like to think I'm decently talented, but there's some freaks out there,
Right.
you know. So. And I think people look at this and they're like, some people anyways, and they're like, no way, right? There's got to be a little something there. Man, there's some dudes out there that are just in SEMA.
Yeah.
You get to see that homie walking around here and like 230 pounds emaciated on stage.
Yeah.
What is that? So yeah, I've had to be intelligent about my training now more than in previous years, but yeah, no, I like to get stronger. And I'm gonna try to get strong one more time.
I would imagine that this whole journey started with you being very thin.
Yeah.
And so what body weight did you kind of start out at?
So I think I was first day in the gym, I was probably 140 pounds, about this height, 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I just, I didn't want to lift weights because my dad lifted weights. So I was, you want to rebel against what your parents are doing.
Right.
But it was like the first day there, I'm like, man, I think I could excel at this. I was doing other sports and doing quite well. But this was the first sport because the other sports, I would just kind of show up, work really hard, I'm competitive,
right,
and I would do okay. But with this, it's like what you put in is what you get on the other side. And that was very appealing to me. I was like, I've never been in a situation like that. And I remember I was a crooked young man. And I remember it just got me away from that stuff. And all I cared about was the gym. And like to be honest, in hindsight, it probably saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were just kind of hanging with the wrong crowd, things like that?
So this was like the epic moment right here. I remember me and the friends, we were doing all sorts of stuff. And I get this phone call. They're like, we're about to do this tonight. Like, you need to come up and join us. And I had an epic chest day lined up.
Uh-oh.
So I couldn't miss the epic chest day.
Like, this is about pecs, guys. What are you guys talking about?
So I went to go do the pec thing. And then I get back home. We didn't have cell phones at the time. And I get a phone call that, no, the homies got caught up. One of them was bit by a dog, and I'm like, oh wow, like that would have been me in that situation.
Damn.
And we had been getting away with stuff up until that point. So I think right then and there, I'm like, all right, I think you made the right choice. Let's just put our head down and work. Yeah.
Did you get in trouble a lot as a kid in general, and struggle with school and that kind of thing?
Yeah. No, I'd say so. I was talking to Smokey about this, but yeah, I was in and out of high school, and the first thing that I ever really committed to was like lifting weights. And like through that, I just like, as soon as I started really being about that, everything else just kind of came together.
This kind of stuff, it just fascinates me, It is like, without some form of responsibility, then we don't really feel like we have much of a purpose, and I know that we talk about weights all the time on here. We always talk about lifting and talk about diet and stuff, but I don't think there's much else to talk about because I think that they're so important towards any goal that you might have towards doing anything. To look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and to think, oh man, he's successful because he threw around some weights and looked different than everybody else. It's just so much deeper than that. So much deeper than that. And the guy's been successful in nearly everything that he's tried. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that the dedication that it took for him to be the person that he became, for him to be the bodybuilder that he was, shouldn't be any surprise that he was able to run for governor. It should be no surprise he was able to do all these other things after his bodybuilding career.
I mean, I'm sure you wake up and you feel like it's your, how like we hate to plateau in the gym, and it's like your moral obligation almost to, you personally, like to, take steps forward, to do something different, to push yourself.
Right.
Like you don't feel right if you don't have something like that, and that's. The weightlifting thing at this point, I think, is pretty automated. Like that's the only way I know how to do it.
Right.
But like now it's gone to the point where it's like, okay, that's kind of on cruise control. Even when I think I'm cruising, I'm not cruising, man.
Right.
But it's all these other things that I wake up with, and I'm like, it's my moral obligation to wake up, make a difference, leave this place better than I found it. and that's just what keeps me going. And that wasn't me when I was 16 when I first started this. I was just kind of doing my thing. And
yeah, and when you're a kid, I mean, all you're thinking, well, not even when you're a kid, but even as you grow up and you start to become involved in a sport or something like that, you're really just thinking about yourself.
Yeah.
You're really thinking about how do I, and then as you get older, you start to become wiser and start to realize, okay, like if I pour myself into some other people, then I actually move along a lot faster.
Yeah.
It's actually a great phenomenon.
Yeah. No, and like now we're here, and like I mean, it's kind of dumb. It's like it started with like shaving your body and getting but now we're making a difference, and it just like I'm so thankful that I found this, because a lot of people go their whole lives never finding that one thing that gets them going.
What do you think the hardest part has been for you to stay dedicated to or consistent to? Has it been the training? Has it been the diet? Has it been like the kind of the overall lifestyle of like, I don't know if you're a guy that eats 6 times a day, but there's a lot of that goes on as well.
Man, I think it doesn't even have to do with like all that others. Like it's just habits. Like like all the stuff you do now. Like back when you were you looked a little different, right?
Yeah.
Like it would have been stressful, but this is now all you know.
Right.
It's like not pushing a set. It's like you don't know how to like not push a set, right? So lost my train of thought, but that's probably, it's like getting people to do that like through my work. That's probably like that's my number one mission at this point is to do that, because I'm not going to be around forever. Eventually, like all athletes, I'm gonna have to be on that decline.
Right.
But I want to leave some sort of legacy that is,
right.
that maybe encourages the next person to continue that trend.
It's an interesting thing. Is like I feel the same way. I feel like I want to try to get people. If I can get people to feel a quarter of what I'm feeling, 10% of what I'm feeling from training and from diet, then I'll feel like I've been pretty successful, because they'll be like lured in by that.
Yeah.
They'll be screwed. Like they'll be just like you or I, where they have to kind of do this the rest of their life, because the act of not lifting weights makes them feel worse. The act of eating ice cream outweighs the benefits and how they feel of eating steak and potato or something like that.
See, it's no longer just about you, and I think that's the cool part.
Right.
And that's what I work for, like every single day.
And it gets to be a point where it doesn't even seem like a choice. It's just something that gets done.
Yeah.
It's just something that you do.
Yeah.
To get as lean as you are in some of these videos that we were just watching, are you doing cardio and stuff too? I mean, what does all this look like?
So for some preps, I did cardio. For other ones, not too much.
Think it makes a difference?
I think so. It just lets me eat more so that I can train harder. So that's probably the biggest thing I found.
Do you think that there's something to that? Because people talk about calories in, calories out type of stuff, but I noticed in my 8 weeks of bodybuilding, I felt like it made more sense to have the cardio in there and to be able to eat more. It almost felt like, and I know it's like maybe not the exact way that it works, but it felt like the lifting was to gain muscle, the food was to help fuel the muscle, and the cardio specifically was like for burning fat. I know it's probably a little bit more complicated than just that, but that's really what it felt like it was doing. And it felt like if I was just to cut back on just calories, that maybe I would be not supporting my lifting as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. So this last prep, I did cardio. I walked. That's what I did. I did 10,000 steps a day, and then I would just add steps as I got stuck.
At a pretty good rate, or just walking period, just cruising?
Just walking. Sometimes if I had something to do, I'd walk a little faster. But it was good productive time too. I'd put on some audiobooks or something and do that. But yeah, it just made it so that a lot of my like energy needs were just heightened via the cardio. So it helped. I'll never do another prep without. I've done preps like with little to no cardio, but way better. I was able to train way harder. Like I kept like 95% of my off-season strength.
Do you think maybe it's like almost in relation to, sometimes people will say, somebody might say you can bodybuild without carbs, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, yeah, you probably can, but it's just easier to have the carbs.
Yeah.
Would you kind of say the same thing with the cardio? Like, yes, you can get really lean and shredded, and you can look great without the cardio, but it's just, you'll get there faster. It's a little easier to do it with the cardio.
No, absolutely. I felt like I was getting into the car through the car window when I was not doing cardio. It just made it a lot simpler, a lot
Right,
more
right.
straightforward. No, I'll never do it without cardio again. And I lose fat really well, but still, it made it so much easier, way easier.
You work with a lot of people. You've helped a lot of people over the years, and have you noticed huge differences in the amount of requirements people need in terms of their macronutrients, in terms of their carbohydrates and fats and these different things?
Yeah. So that I mean,
Kind of all over the map.
Same principles, but man, I think the biggest thing that you need to identify if you want to do this at some point is how do you store fat. So people who tend to store fat in their gut only, or mostly in their gut, they tend to lose the easiest. So that's why, like, you have, husband and wife get on the diet. And they do the South Beach diet because that's what the wife wants to do. And the husband's here losing all that weight because he has typical, like, male, like, body fat storage patterns. Right. Whereas, like, usually females, they tend to store it in their lower half more. Yep. That, when I see someone who's got abs, but, like, their legs look like stuffed raviolis, I'm like, this is going to fucking hurt.
It's going to be hard.
That's how it is. So that's probably the biggest difference is it can tell just by how you store fat, how hard it is going to be for you. Like, you want to see that guy that's got, like, vascular arms with a little gut. Like, that's the dude that's just going to just emaciate super easily. So that's the biggest thing. And then I think the other thing is just the caloric needs are so different from person to person.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why? Is it not the differences in caloric, but the first thing that you said about the male-female model there? Do you think it has to do with hormones, or
I think,
or it's just mainly what you've seen?
I think a lot of it's what I've seen, but there's just a lot of so there's less circulation. Like, for example, you know how most butts are cold.
Yeah,
there's very little.
Yeah, actually, it's like really weird, but you can't like tell. If you asked yourself, is my butt hot or cold, and you try to answer it, and then you touch your butt, you'll be wrong most of the time.
Yeah. Most butts are cold. There's very little circulation going through there, and like a lot of the muscles in that hip area, so it's hard to mobilize fat through there.
Right.
And just women tend to have it that way a little bit worse than men.
It's hard to get rid of that shit, huh?
Yeah, Stephanie's butt's always cold at night.
Right. So,
It's freezing.
Butts are cold.
You gotta warm it up.
That matters. That's an idea.
Gotta get close to it and warm that peach up.
Yeah, Mark, if you ever need somebody to let you know if your butt's cold or not, I'm here for you, buddy.
You're right behind me.
I'm right behind you, yeah.
In a lot of your bodybuilding, I remember Lane mentioning to me that you could eat like crazy amount of carbohydrates.
Yeah.
What level of carbohydrates were you consuming?
So I think this was the first prep where I had to dip down under 400 grams a day. So that's like 1,600
You're
calories.
slowing down.
The old can thing is happening. But I think a lot of that has to do with I'm just way more sedentary now compared to before. So that's a big thing. It's like, you know, if you're a server somewhere, you're probably going to use up a bit more caloric intake than, because people often they relate a lot of the caloric intake to metabolism, but it's more so a person's like drive to move, whether it be conscious or not. Because you remember, what did a flight of stairs look like to you when you were deep into your prep, right?
Yeah.
Your body just, it finds a way to like make budget cuts. And a lot of it is just movement throughout the day that, you don't realize it gobbles up a lot of like calories.
Right. So you're a big believer in calories in, calories out, flexible dieting type stuff, right?
Ish, but I've been kind of, it's a trap, man. It's like a lot of people use that to, because like with your system, I remember one thing when you started to lose the weight, like you might have labeled it something, but it was a change in behaviors. That was the biggest thing. Right. Whereas if people don't focus on behaviors and they just solely rely on a system that's like their problem solver, like end all system, those are the people that they don't last very long. And you might have like 2-3 good years out of them, but then that's it. Because like, what are your default like systems now? Like if you didn't have like, if things weren't laid out the way they are for you, like
if I want to go haywire, I'm going to eat a freaking Quest bar. You know what I mean? Like that's me partying.
Yeah.
That's me going nuts. I mean, occasionally I'll say, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm gonna take the weekend off or take a couple of days off, and I feel like I can do that now. But in the past, that would have been a big mistake because my mindset was so different.
And I bet you it looks different. Like you probably sneak in a few things that people are like, well, you don't have to do that. It's your weekend off. So I believe in flexible diet. I think that like it does come down to calories, but most systems kind of take care of that by default, like without knowing. But
I agree.
At the end, like the biggest thing before you decide to compete is like you need to have good habits, and that's what you did, right, homie? Because you had your habits in place. You just added a few things to it, and you did a bodybuilding show.
Right. No, I think that when people are saying that they're on a diet, they're really they're the goal of the diet really is to truly try to change a lot of their habits.
Yeah.
A lot of their bad dietary habits, a lot of maybe even just like lifestyle habits. Maybe they go to bed late. I think a huge problem that a lot of people are facing, and you're not really sure what comes first, the kind of chicken or the egg. Are you making bad choices with your food because you're fatigued every day because you're not sleeping, or are you consuming bad food, just shitty food in general, and that's causing a cascade of problems, one of which is that you're not sleeping very well.
Yep.
Some people are getting so heavy and so big that they're not as motivated to move because they're too big they're like, a flight of stairs doesn't look great, I'm going to take the elevator. There's those kinds of decisions being made all the time. Then there's also, your food eventually, when you eat poorly, is going to affect your body a lot, and it's going to affect a lot of the things that we naturally have wired in our system that tell us, hey, go to bed and do this and do that and stay asleep. But a lot of times when someone's not healthy, they're going to wake up at 2 a.m. They're going to rip through their cabinet and eat ice cream and whatever else is there.
Well, in behaviors cascade, if you do something good for yourself on this end, you're going to start taking care of the sleep. You're going to start taking care of the stress. So you start getting things in order. It just becomes automated. This doesn't feel like an effort anymore. It doesn't. Like you, I'll take my evening off and just, go have a few beers with the boys. But I wake up the next morning and it's like, hey, whey protein, shake some fruits, and it's right back at it. And
right back to work.
I don't know any other way.
Do you feel that maybe the negatives outweigh the positives a little bit? Like they're a little stronger. Maybe there's just like, I don't know, or do you think that's just bad habits over a period of time, making it feel like the negatives easier? Like it's easier just to eat pizza.
I think. That's complicated, man. There's so many things that go into like why people do things.
Yeah.
But man, the biggest thing is just figuring out something that's just it's just as automated as can be for you. Like when you were doing the no carb thing, like did you have to think? No.
That's what made it easy.
Yeah.
That's what made it easy and for somebody else, maybe it makes it easy for them to just write down everything.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes it easy for them to count calories. So like for a while, I was kind of like bashing people over the head with the war on carbs type thing and saying, hey, like, this is dumb that you're so concerned about counting calories, but then you're eating a Pop-Tart or whatever, right? But at the same time, I'm like, well, all the diets are basically trying to say the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's what you mentioned already, which is you got to change your habits. The reasons why you have to change your habits is you have to have some form of control. We have to figure out a way to get control because ultimately we are in search of being able to control the overall calories that we're consuming versus the overall calories that we're burning. And yes, it might not be a 1-to-1 ratio and it might not be perfect and it might be different in every single person. It might be hard to account for how many calories are truly in things. Like we already know all these things, but really we're just trying to get some control, trying to gain some self-control. And that's going to be might be a lot of habits to break.
Yeah, and for the person out there that's like, I kind of want to do something like that, because a lot of people that say that they're cool with how things are, I think especially in the strength community, sometimes you see that a little bit. But it can get to the point where it feels like the good habits feels like mindless as like when you're just having pizza, and like that's what my whole life feels like. It feels like I'm having pizza all day. But I think most people look into like
that's actually a really great way to put it. I think that makes a lot of sense for people, like, because if they're kind of audible, their go-to is, that there's no food at home and they just order pizza. Mm-hmm. Well, now the go-to is that thing that you cooked earlier in the week. It's just sitting there, whether it's meatballs or chicken breast and rice or whatever it was that is your go-to. It's now sitting there, and I think a really big failure, I think, for most people is thinking that when you go on a diet, that there's going to be this crazy amount of sacrifice.
Yeah.
There's some sacrifice, but like if you're 300 pounds and you just want to start to lose some weight and get some momentum, small sacrifices will help you to lose weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some small changes will help you to lose weight. Start walking, start drinking more water, start sleeping a little bit more. Maybe just cut back on soft drinks that have calories in them. And like you might be on your way to losing 5 or 10 pounds.
Like when I make decisions, like life-changing decisions, like something maybe new that I want to do, that's like meditating, whatever, right? It's like I always start off and I give myself like an amount that I know I'll thrive with, as opposed to like can I get this done? So you start with like very little,
Right.
you know, and you always want to feel like you're ahead. Like I can do this on my worst day. And the issue with most people is they go from being that 300-pound dude to like, you know, I'm going to do all these things and like live like Jay Cutler. It's
Right.
like, good luck. That's going to be like 2 weeks for you.
And in your comparison there, it would be like you're thinking about meditating. You're like, I'm going to be a Shaolin monk tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, no, why don't you, first of all, why don't you just try to like be without your phone for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and just chill and try to, you know, whatever your version of meditation is. Different people kind of have their different, some people like to listen to music. Some people say that, you know, no music. Some people say close your eyes. Some people say it doesn't matter, but find a version that you think is good and try to do 2 minutes.
If you do 1 day a week, like what is that then? That's way more than you were doing anyways.
Right.
Oh, you know what's next for me? I want to do the dopamine fast. I don't know if you've heard about that.
No.
So you know how we get like, you know, we'll pick up the phone, a little dopamine hit there,
Oh,
a little
yeah.
drink dopamine, right? Lifting weights, like
We're going to get dopamine faster, or we're going to fast away from it.
We're gonna fast. We're gonna get away from for 1 day. So basically 1 day, no nothing. No talking to anyone. You just lock yourself up somewhere.
So you just do it for a day.
For a day, and all you have.
Can't jerk off.
No, that is, I mean,
Dopamine.
I get a lot of dopamine from that. Yeah, just you and your notebook. Just you and your notebook alone for 1 day, and that's something that at some point I'm scared to do that one, man, because that one freaks me out. It's like I can't.
It's crazy because it's only 1 day,
Mm-hmm.
but man, 1 day will seem really, really long. I've done. Think about the different things that you've done, like, you know, and you try to devote like a period of time to it. You know, an 8-week bodybuilding prep, or 12, or sometimes a lot, natural guys sometimes will do 20, 30 weeks, right?
Yep.
You really diet for a long time. When you start to think about like dedicating a time slot to something, even if it's just like meeting up with somebody, somebody's like, "Hey man, you got some time on Tuesday to meet up at 10 o'clock?" You're like, it like stresses you the hell out, you know? So to try to pin yourself down for 1 day and say like, I'm not going to, have my phone. I'm just going to like kind of chill. Well, I mean, what other things would you have to avoid to, like, would you just not eat that day? You'd fast?
I think you fast. I think that's part of it, yeah, because I think it's just water. Just water in a notebook in a cave somewhere.
Damn.
I'd be with that, though. I'm scared shitless to do it, but
Yeah,
I need to
sounds
do
scary.
it.
Where'd you hear that from?
You know, you go down the YouTube rabbit hole.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
You end up,
In the same-
you start with midget strippers, and then you end up way over here. Yeah, so that's...
How does it always start out with midget strippers? That's weird.
That's the center of the rabbit
I
hole.
like their squat leverages. That's
I'd imagine if you did this dopamine fast, you'd probably realize how much time you actually had, like, to kind of devote to yourself.
You know what I feel would happen? The very next day, I would... All those things that you kind of put off, you're like, I can't wait to do that.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like I'm gonna get working on my front yard, something like that. You know, so I can see that happening.
All the stuff that you've been putting aside because you're like, I get to that later, and then now you're just like,
I get to do it.
I could do it. Yeah, exactly.
What makes you tick, man? What gets you fired up?
Mm.
What gets you out of bed every day, fired up for the day?
I guess the fact that I've made it this far already is something that like I use to just in my own way. Like I've done more than I ever thought I would. But I also felt like I wasted a lot of time. Like when I look back, I'm like, if I could have taken this young man at like 12, 13, whatever, like built him up, like I think things would have been even better. And sometimes you can't help but like dwell on that. But the fact that it's like I see the power in just like keeping your feet moving and doing something. Like now it's like, okay, you can still do a whole lot. Like, if things go well, I'm about the halfway point, I think.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going. Is like, don't waste no more time. Do something. You know better now. And what you can do when you can just keep those feet moving. It's pretty crazy.
I try to share the message here on this show a lot with, never do nothing. Do more, be more. The more that you can do, the more that you can handle. And, the bodybuilding thing kind of takes it really, really far.
Yeah.
But in the middle of bodybuilding prep, it's kind of a magical spot to be in.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's a really, when you start to diet and you start to come closer to the show, that's not a great spot to be in there's a bunch of reasons. I don't know about you, but like I also felt myself being really judgmental.
Yeah.
I was like looking at other people eat and I'm like, that guy's a fat fuck. Why is he stuffing his face with that? And then I'm like, why am I having such negative thoughts? Why do I care what that guy's eating? He's enjoying himself. Why should I even care? But the middle of that bodybuilding prep is a really special place to be, and it feels like you're spinning a lot of plates at once. You're getting in shape, you're knocking out your cardio. It's all a bunch of work that you like made up for yourself, right? Like the diet, maybe you have a coach, but it's something that you agreed upon. You're like, I'm gonna do this way, and you gave yourself like you almost gave yourself so much shit to do that you don't have a second to like sit down and breathe and really think about anything else.
It's that spot right before you become useless, where you're you're in that mode, and
your coach takes away your fat, your carbs, or something. You're like, just pull the rug out from underneath me, man.
But it's
my lifeline, bro.
I want to live in that spot. Like that's where I'd like to go.
I think Mike O'Hearn lives there.
Oh, dude.
I think he does, man. I think
he's
it's
the mayor.
He's the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
He's seen people.
He might not let you in, bro, with that hair.
But no, I know what you're talking about, in that, because if you do it right with your prep, is you're doing that, you're taking care of other things as well. Like I think a coward just does the Herman thing, where they're like, you know what, I'm a prep, and like fuck everything else, fuck my relationships, my responsibilities, and I was like, people see that as hardcore. I'm like, dude, that's the cop out. That's the cop out. So that sweet spot where you have everything going and you're just like a fucking machine, like that is like with anything in life. I remember walking to my first it was organic chem class, and I'd just done my first prep, and I killed myself to get in shape that year. I remember I was so intimidated because the class was a 6-unit class. Most big math classes are 5, so they're telling you like you're about to get run over, like your life is over, is what 6 units means. I remember looking at all these foods and I'm like, I just fucking did something that no one in this class could do. Nobody.
It makes you feel superior.
it does, but I'm a competitive guy, and that's how I
no, it's not negative.
No,
it's not negative. It's positive. Yeah.
But people in that class gonna get an A.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I just did this and you guys couldn't touch that, I'm about to go do the same thing. I'm about to crush this class. And I think that's something that a lot of athletes fail to get from what they do in here. You guys do stuff that's like incredible, that's crazy, but it stays there, and that's unfair to you.
It's really powerful. When like if you're sitting in a classroom, there's like 40 people in there, you might think, okay, I can't outrun that dude, I can't out jump that guy, I can't, out gymnastics that girl over there, I can't out do this or that with this person. But when you feel that you are mentally stronger than everybody else in the room, like that is an amazing, I've been powerlifting since the time I was a kid, and most rooms that I've been in, a lot of times when I go into a room, I could say, yeah, like it's kind of cool, like I'm stronger than everybody in the room, like it feels good. But I'll tell you what, nothing compares to feeling like you have more mental strength or more heart.
Yeah.
And it might not even be true, because who knows what people
like. Who cares? You believe it.
Yeah, you don't, right. That's the main thing, is that you believe it. And that's a belief in yourself that's deep. Like that comes from, who knows where it comes from, but it comes from like your gut. It comes from way down deep. And if they were to bring you up in front of class and say, Alberto, it seems like you got a chip on your shoulder, what's going on today? And you're like, I'm better than every motherfucker in this room because I'm on this strict ass diet and I don't think any of you suckers can follow it. Right? I mean, you'd be able to like kind of say that, and when you said it, you wouldn't, your words wouldn't be quivering, you wouldn't be stumbling over them, you wouldn't be second guessing yourself. That's the way you actually feel in that moment.
Well, I mean, when you think about like us humans, like we're weak and puny. Like even Bo Jackson, like
Oh,
like
I don't talk about Bo.
the animal kingdom be like whatever. But what we do have is this thing up here that's just it's insane, and people don't tap into that. So like you can be the shittiest athlete, but if you got this stuff, like I feel like I'm a pretender sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of guys that are way more talented than me, but I've rolled through them because of that belief.
I think it's important to keep that mindset. You got to have that kind of like white belt mentality where you're like, I haven't done shit yet.
Yeah. What do you think when you go down before a heavy ass squat? It's not like I don't think it's going to go up. So there's no doubt in your mind. And that's how you should approach every
I'm
day.
not sure if I'm going to make this. Right? Like, that's not a good way to go into that.
No, you don't say, oh, shit. You know, I only see myself doing it. That's it.
The most productive people I've been around, it's really rare to see them fail.
Yeah.
You know, they might mess up something here and there, but the whole time I worked with Stan Efferding, helping him get ready to break all-time world records, I saw him miss one lift. You know, I saw him miss one bench attempt. Or I guess now that I think about it, I saw him miss 2 lifts because he missed the deadlift in competition where he tore his hamstring. So I saw him miss 1 bench press. I saw him miss 1 deadlift. And the bench press that he missed, he corrected it in the meet on game day when it mattered most. But most of the time, like, he was very confident in his strength. He was very confident in what he was doing. And, you know, I was kind of helping him call some of the numbers. But he would just hit just enough weight to get out of it what he needed. And he wasn't there to, like, really show off or anything. It was just, this is the work that needs to get done for the day, and this is what I'm doing.
That's the whole amnesia thing. Like, say what you want about Donald Trump, for example, but like that homie, like he can do anything. Yeah. And if he messes up, he's like, I'll get it this next time. Yeah. And there's no doubt in his mind. Oh,
the things that he tweets and the things that he says are, I know it upsets a lot of people, and people get crazy about it. But you think, man, that guy, like, is there anybody mentally stronger than that guy?
Yeah.
Like, he just, somebody will say something, it could be true about him. It could be an allegation that's true about him. He'll be like, fake news.
Yeah. Well, here's what I like to take from people. It's like, I heard this somewhere, but like, you got to pick your role models a la carte. Yeah. Like, you don't like take everything about that person, but everyone who's successful has something that you're like, I can vibe off that, and I could apply that to myself, and I should try to, you know, get a little bit of that myself. So,
well, I like that, because who knows what Arnold Schwarzenegger does behind closed doors, or who knows how Donald Trump actually is. But I think what people get confused about too is, like, you know, saying that someone like Donald Trump does A, B, and C. It's like, wait a second, that's fine that you're saying that. But does that have anything to do with him being the president of the United States?
Yeah.
Like, if it does, then maybe there's some real general concern. But, like, let's keep in mind, like, what we're looking for. You know, you think of someone like O.J. Simpson, who committed these horrific acts. It doesn't take away the fact that he was a Hall of Fame running back. He was a great running back. And so if you're aspiring to be like somebody, maybe you're only aspiring to be like just part of what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And not everything else that goes on, because you don't know what goes on.
Yeah, no, it's way safer to do it that way.
Yeah, much safer. Maybe you aspire to be more like your mom or more like your dad.
Yeah.
You know, somebody that you really, you know, you've been around them a lot. You've seen them make the right decisions.
Yeah. No, that's speaking of moms. I know you close with your parents, and same
Hell
thing
yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, close with your mom. Your mama's boy.
Yeah. So I got her to retire, and I'm like, just come and move in with me.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, just like your job's to take care of the dogs while I come away.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like the least I could do. She put up with my shit for so long.
She's chilling with your dogs right now?
Yep, that's what she's doing. She's out in Colorado smoking a doobie with the dogs in the porch.
She's the one who actually writes the bodybuilding programs when you sign up for Alberto's stuff.
Her and the guy from India just...
Yeah, I was just going to say, your mom checked in. She's like, I shared today's podcast. Make sure you guys keep your language clean. It's like, yes, Mom, we will.
Oh, no.
You've done a good job.
Yeah, no, we're fine.
When you're getting ready for a bodybuilding show, and you know, we saw these striations popping out of everywhere, do the exercises play into that somewhat, or is it just is it diet or combination? What do you got going on there?
No, I think it's more diet and just development. You know, unfortunately, the way things grow is the way they grow. But no, I think the biggest thing is just keep dieting and don't be afraid to lose. Like, I have no muscle, like, you know, like, relatively speaking, but I'm not afraid to diet because I have nothing to lose. Right. And I think that's something with the big dudes, because that's what makes them unique and big. Right. They don't want to see a certain number on the scale, but if you keep going, like you saw this, you know, some of your body parts that maybe you were a bit like questionable about as you got leaner. You're like, hey, they look all right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, I was kind of always the person that would say, like, man, like, I'd be a horrible bodybuilder because I've torn both my biceps, I tore my pec, I've torn this, I've torn that. So I'm like, that would just not, you know, look good. And then I had Hani Rambat on the podcast one day, and he was like, you know, there's a show here in Sacramento, and it's in like 9 weeks, and he's like, you're doing it. And I was like, okay.
That's how it happened. Okay.
I was like, if you're going to help me, then, because I was like, I know zero about bodybuilding. So I was like, if you're going to help me, then that would, you know, of course I'll do it, because I'm going to need some damn help, you know, in order to do it. But, you know, it was a challenge. You know, it was hard to jump into something like that. Yeah. But, you know, it was reassuring to have someone like that who's got so much experience. You know, somebody that can kind of lead you through it. And he kept making tweaks, and I don't know what he's looking at or what he's not. You know, he's looking at these pictures I'm sending him every morning of me in my underwear, basically. I'm sure he's getting off on it or something, but you know, he's telling me, hey, like, eat this. Hey, switch from this vegetable to that vegetable. I'm like, what difference is that going to make? And then sure enough, 3 days later, I'm a lot leaner. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on, but I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to keep going.
Hey, but that whole process is a trip. Speaking of the dopamine fast, it's almost like that. Like for you're cruising and it's like this weird, like life slows down.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I go back for. Like every few years, I go back because I'm like, I need to go through that again because I always come out a better person on the other side, and I always push more than I thought I could.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've actually been thinking about like doing something here at the gym where, you know, I invite some people here. I don't know exactly how it would work, but like we train super early. They eat, you know, we all eat the same. Like we kind of go through a little bit of that process. Yeah. I just don't know how long you'd have to go through it to really feel it.
It's almost like a self-improvement camp, but it's like hidden. And,
right.
And, you know, the pill's hidden and like all this other stuff. Right? Yeah.
But when you do bodybuilding prep, I'd imagine you probably get up pretty early too, because it's like there's a lot to do.
If I want to bodybuild, I got to stay on top of my other stuff. So the time management thing becomes a huge component of your success.
Have you utilized any sort of intermittent fasting or anything like that in your bodybuilding prep?
Yeah. So the way I roll with it is like I'll wake up, I do my cardio, and I'll eat until when I'm hungry. I'll wait until like, you know, I'm like, okay, I think I can use a meal. And the only thing that's kind of staple is probably the pre-training meal, because I think it's the most important meal when you are prepping, because that's what's going to get you through your training. But no, I've done that. My meal frequency can vary from sometimes 2 meals a day to like, you know, 4. So it's somewhere around there.
That's unusual for a bodybuilder.
Very, very, yeah. But, you know, I think it's one thing. That's one thing that I've done over time is like, let's remove the rules that like aren't really doing anything for you, and they're just like another thing on your checklist.
Yeah.
So we've got it to that point now.
So do you think all these different things matter? Like, do we need to have, you know, you're 170, 180 pounds?
On stage?
What do you weigh now?
190.
190? Damn!
Yeah.
Breaking the scale. So at 190, like, do you need to have, you know, 180, 190 grams of protein every day? Or, like, do you kind of throw out some of those rules when you're dieting?
The fatter you are, the less your protein needs go down, and the calories go up. Same thing. So right now, I have a comfy amount of fat, and I'm eating at least enough every day. So my protein needs probably come down to about a gram, maybe a little bit over, but maybe a little bit under as well. But when I'm prepping, it's like, no, they need to be a little bit higher because...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you need some sort of food too, right? I mean, like, so that's where the vegetables come in. It's like, you know, we can get in this big debate about, you know, what the hell vegetables do or don't do for you, but they don't have a whole lot of calories in them, and so you're not starving, and you don't want to kill everybody in sight. Have some damn vegetables, and get some fiber in your system, right?
Oh, and protein intake too. I think that it helps a lot with behavior. I think honestly, for most guys, they're just like looking to get rolling. It's like, hey, stop and eat protein 5 times a day. It will automatically change your behavior. My brother's actually obese. My brother's like 350 pounds. It's a big dude. Yeah. And I remember he just wasn't ready for the change, but he's like, what can I do? And I'm like, let me give you something you can thrive off of. Just eat a whey protein shake before every meal. And he quit because he was like, it works too well. I can't have my 10 tacos, bro. So, but yeah, protein is very satiating along with the veggies. I mean, 200 grams of carbs, you and I can pound that away like in 15 minutes. 200 grams of protein, we have to reschedule things after that. You know? Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, you eat 200 grams of protein and you're not doing much after that.
No, but 200 grams of carbs, that sounds like a good time, you know?
It does. It sounds easy, especially with some rice, get like a little soy sauce going on there or something.
Go to Cold Stone, you got your 200 grams of carbs.
What about the types of food that you eat in bodybuilding prep? Does that get pretty strict too, or are you just don't care too much?
It does. It's crazy because when you prep, like I like to think that I have my stuff, but you develop like a transient eating disorder. You know, it's like short-lived. I remember eating like a whole package of rice cakes. I'm like, I'm gonna eat this every day when like the season's done. It's like, no, now I'm just eating rice because, you know, it's easier, right?
Right.
But yeah, I think the majority of my foods, like obviously, like quality is important because you're not eating enough calories. So like what you should be eating should be, you know, foods that do a little bit more for you than just give you energy. So, you know, and I think a multi is great, but there's always, you know, nature, it has a purpose, right? So like, you know, there's all these things that are attached to whatever you want in broccoli that like there's transport systems so that you can use them appropriately. So I think the majority of your foods should be that. But then also, what ends up happening, those foods are much more satiating, which is important because, like, I swear to you, like 99% of bodybuilders cheat on their diet.
Oh yeah.
Like it's crazy. You it's like, no. If you get to know a guy, he'd be like, yeah. So I had 3 incidents this prep. So it minimizes it when you eat foods that are a little bland, high in satiety. And I remember, so the first strict diet, I remember Cheerios was like the one thing that I had that was like kind of moderately tasty. I remember tasting those Cheerios and I'm like, whoa. Like they taste like fucking Fruit Loops to me right now.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So
wild.
it changes your palate, and I think it makes it easier. Like the dude that's like putting sprinkles and doing the IIFYM thing, I'm like, that dude's suffering. He's suffering because what happens after you eat that? You can do that again. Whereas like I have one of my more traditional meals. It's like, okay, I'm good. I'll be okay for 2 hours or something like that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's hard to like in your bodybuilding prep. It's hard to like fit in anything that really has a lot of flavor because it kind of sends you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
You know, Hani was even sharing with me like he gave me some greens, which is a supplement that he has. You know, and he's like, I said, how many times a day can I have this? And he's like, well, just have it like once a day. And then if like I don't know, maybe a couple days later, I asked him, like, can I have it like 2 or 3 times a day? Because I just like the flavor of it.
Yeah.
He's like, no, man. He's like, don't mess with it. He's like, he's like, you're better off. You know, you'll be in more control more often, and you'll be able to stay on your diet better. He's like, I know you're a former fat kid, so he's like, just have it once a day. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well,
But
what
it
happens?
made sense.
Like after your show, you have that first meal and you enjoy it. It's cool.
Yeah.
But it's not nearly as wonderful as it tasted to you when you were eating that routinely.
Oh.
It's crazy how that is, right?
Yeah. Well, and then also you're also kind of like thinking like, what's all this going to do to me?
Yeah.
You know, and you don't want to end up paying the price sitting on the toilet all day.
And
But that's ultimately what happens.
that is what happens anyways. But yeah, it's you can, it goes back to behaviors. So like whatever you eat like frequently enough, it just kind of becomes what you like.
Do you run into a lot of people when you're helping them? Do you run into a lot of people who have been, for lack of a better term, just sorry, Mom, eating like a pussy for a long time? Like you just run into a lot of people that they're into this fitness thing. They're into working out. Not just women. I don't think a lot of people realize that men have all the same hangups about being fat and being heavy that women do. Do you run into a lot of people that they actually just need more calories?
Oh yeah.
They just need like more food. They're not eating enough.
So back in our day, we used to bulk, man. Like that was the thing. But like now, like everyone wants to be like aesthetic, you know. So
I remember one time telling my wife, I was like, man, I wish my waist was a little bit smaller. She's like, you sound like a girl. She's like, you need to just stop. She's like, why would you have a small waist? She's like, that's stupid. And I was like, I guess you're right. I guess it is stupid. If you think it's dumb, then I'm on board with that.
the body dysmorphia that comes with it, right? But yeah, you go through Instagram and everyone's like lean and throwing back their pictures, and you know you feel like. But like, honestly, I bulked up super heavy at some point. I don't know if you know that. Guess my top weight. Guess my top weight. Guess my top weight. What was the heaviest you think I've
You're
ever?
190 now. I'll say 240.
Yeah, dude. How'd you guess that? Yeah, 240. So I was 240, and it was just because I thought it was what I needed to do to get the job done. Total waste of time, but it involved a lot of discipline because I spent a lot of summers being the fat kid. I'm like, wait till I cut. But yeah, I think a lot of people, because they want it now, they don't want to go through that transition phase where you know you're transitioning. It's not the end goal, right? So yeah, that is an issue that I have with, and I think especially it's like if you're gonna stay natural, it's like guess what? Like muscle is like is sparse. It's like try to maximize it, and you're just gonna look better because even when you're a little fat, when you have muscle, it looks all right.
Right.
You know, it doesn't like it contours things. It holds it up.
What do you think like fasting can do for some people? Because I was kind of blown away that it was even like a thing. When some people started mentioning fasting, I'm like, this is ridiculous. You know, if you want to be jacked, you gotta eat a lot. You know, you need a lot of food. And so I first started to hear about this stuff. I was like, this is garbage. And I was like, well, okay, that doesn't make sense for me to bash it. I never tried it, so let me try it. And I played around with it. I actually like it, and I've actually incorporating some more fasting right now. What are some of your thoughts on it?
And by no means am I an expert in this, but it goes back to like the dopamine thing. Like we get that from food.
Yeah.
So if you cut out maybe your first 2 meals, you get rid of your frosted flakes in the morning, and you're just kind of focused on your day and what you have to do, that's what becomes your next high. It's like, I got this done. Let me move on to the next. So I think that's where you become occupied in the stuff that you need to get done. You know, like the early part of your day sets the tone for the rest of the day. When my early part of my day is kind of shitty, it kind of carries over into the rest. So I think that's what it does, because most people choose to fast early on in the day.
Right.
I think that's what it does. It's like they're just more useful. They get more done.
Right.
And if they do have an issue with being food focused, it kind of removes it for a while, because it's not an option. If you're fasting, you don't get to eat till like 1 or 2 p.m. or what have you. It's okay, out of sight, out of mind. Let me go take care of those things that I need to take care of to have a good day.
That's what I'm liking about it right now. It's just I feel like I have a lot to get done each and every day, just like a lot of other people. But I got a lot on my plate, and I'm like, man, you know what? There's like 2 or 3 times during the day where I just kind of get sidetracked by eating, and then when I eat, I gotta poop. The more I eat, the more I poop. Imagine that. And that also takes time, but it's also just all the meal prep. I mean, that takes away some time as well. So, now, that I'm messing around with some fasting, I can leave the house. I don't need to try to bring anything with me. I don't need to be like prepared. I know that just when I go home, and the other thing is too, I kind of like to I kind of like to overdo it a little bit. So I like to have a bigger meal. I like to get some, do you think that's okay to do it with a fasting style of diet?
Yeah, no, that's one of the
pound
perks.
some food.
Yeah, when I'm dieting, it's like, hey, it actually doesn't look like a baby man meal. It looks okay.
Right.
But this is kind of going too far. I can be like, this dude came stoned in here, but it's just kind of expanding on it too much.
We're high on kratom.
My buddies are gonna get a kick out of that one. But it kind of goes like, so when humans started to like plant things and like agriculture became a thing, it gave you more time, because it used to be like, hey, get out your spear, let's go hunting. And it just gives you time to it gave them time to be creative, to like develop other things, and that's when civilization started to flourish. So it happens at a micro level with people, I think, with fasting.
Right.
You're not busy looking for your next meal, occupied with that, you get shit done.
What do you think about like ketones and keto diet? Like the keto diet has kind of kicked off, and people are all fired up about that. And what are some of your thoughts on a ketogenic style diet?
Well, I think most people set up their keto diets poorly. Like you can have so much protein sometimes that it knocks you out of ketosis.
Right.
So a lot of people, I think, are just on low carb diets.
Right. That's really important to say, because most people are not on like a true traditional ketogenic diet that's going to make them produce a large amount of ketones.
Yeah. So personally, I feel that it controls calories. So that's the main thing. It controls calories, and then a lot of people, when they they get carbs in there, like their blood sugar gets a little wonky sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think what it does more than anything, it just creates some sort of stability, and it's a super easy to follow system. I think eventually you might get to the point where it's like maybe interfering with your weight training a little bit, and maybe you might sporadically add carbohydrates there. But it's not a bad place to start. It's something that other habits can grow out of that.
Right.
So if you're talking about like just purely like scientifically speaking, there's maybe things we can do better, but unfortunately, like people, they're not paper. You have all these other things that come with every individual, and if it's a good place to get started and it gets you going, just do it.
Right. And I think what I've always tried to share with people, even though I've liked these low carb diets for a long time, and that's really most of what I've experimented with. And I've done ketogenic diets where I'm eating more fat and I'm watching the protein and things like that. And I've measured my ketones every day and like all these different things. And I found exactly what you're talking about. I found that when I'm on a ketogenic diet, that when there's the removal of all carbohydrates, pretty much from the diet, that my workouts are flat. And I think that we're selling ourselves short, thinking that the workout doesn't matter that much. The workout is huge. The workout is a huge part of being able to acquire more muscle mass, be able to acquire more strength, and it's a huge part of, us wanting to basically just look jacked.
Yeah, you're not going to look right if your training ain't right.
Yeah, you got to be able to put in a really good effort, and also we love lifting.
Yeah.
So you don't want to you don't want your workout to be like, you don't want a crap workout. And of course, when you do a keto diet for a little while, you can hit some PRs and stuff. But if you start to lose a bunch of weight and you start to get flat, your workouts are going to feel flat, and it's not a great place to be. What I've always done is I have done a low carb style diet, maybe even go a little ketogenic, and then I bring the carbs back in as soon as I start to feel flat, as soon as I start to kind of feel like, okay, I got rid of the carbs. I developed another new discipline, because maybe for a little while, let's say I get off my diet for a little while. Yeah. We all end up hitting some rough patches here and there, right? We're all guilty of that. and you're smashing pancakes every day and eating ice cream before bed and all these things, then it's a good idea to say, all right, I need to kind of reset myself. Let me go back to whatever it was that works for you. But for me, I'd always just go low carb. It's always worked well. And then I'll start bringing those carbs back in because I'm like, my workouts are just worthless.
And when I was like a teen and just kind of, it was like the first diet that I used to like get cut because it was super clear and comprehensive. And people like that. They don't like things that are overly, you can overload them. So I think they're simple. You get some good results because you're removing calories from a whole food group initially.
Right.
So, you will get fat loss. But the cyclical ketogenic diet, I think it gets sophisticated. I think at this point you have it down to the point where you can feel when you need it.
Right.
Most people probably need something that's more like set in stone and they learn from there. But cyclical ketogenic diets, if you're going to do it and you lift weights, it's probably the best way to go about it.
From your experience, what feels best to you, to eat carbs on a non-training day or on a training day?
Oh, so this was, I think, a huge difference maker for this last prep. Because when you think about weightlifting...
Or not even eat carbs, I should say, but just, I guess, eat more, on a non-training day or a training day,
Yeah.
Could be carbs could be higher or lower, whatever.
My high carb days, last prep, were on an off day. Because it's not what you had for breakfast that day that powers up, but like what you did the many days prior. Because that's how those energy systems, it's like what do you have stored already.
It's kind of that old school mentality of, back in the day when, the high school football team would meet up on like Friday or Thursday night and have a big pasta dinner, and then the next night they'd play football.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it felt. Because like what's most expensive about lifting weights is the recovery aspect. Like it's not one meal that gets you recovered. That's why the whole post-workout thing never made sense, because it's like, so I'm gonna have this whey protein shake and my rice, and now I'm gonna be like recovered. It's like, no, because
fine.
No, you can't go train right now. See if it worked. It takes like many meals, many hours of sleep, many days if you're actually training hard. So to give yourself like a few days where you eat more food and you back off the training, I think it's a great way of doing things. If you could have at least one day like that when you're going through a fat loss phase, and don't get bugged out by the scale because it's going to jump up, it's going to give you better results.
Now, would that be like you can have at it and you can eat, or you want to still keep it clean?
So this last diet, I mean, this is like my 5th contest prep. So I kind of like you. It's like I kind of know how to go by feel. But I think initially to start, you should probably have some sort of system because most people don't know what they're looking for. You're
going to get reckless.
Yeah. So I think initially, the more you need more structures you start out, and then over time you can kind of wing it, because that is, once you become in tune with that, I think that's one of the best things you can do as an advanced athlete. It's like just kind of one of the benefits that you do have is that you understand, you actually know what your body's telling you as opposed to like what you want to hear.
It's a really weird thing when you like go through a process and you're like, oh man, I should have had like 50 more carbs. Somebody'd be like, what? Like, what the hell are you talking about? Or a certain feeling you get. Like I get certain feelings from lifting. I thought yesterday was really productive. We did some bench stuff, and we were just benching for like 2 hours straight, 3 hours straight, whatever it was. But I just thought it was really productive. I could like almost feel myself get stronger. I'm like, that's the kind of workout that I needed right now. Like that felt really good. But I think a lot of times when someone's newer, like maybe they're not feeling that, or maybe they're kind of like frustrated or it didn't feel right to them or whatever, but they're not in tune with how it should really actually feel.
I think this kind of bounces off that, but like I think, stress is. That's how your body, like it just, that's how, like whether it's like, discussion with the wife or a huge squat day, like your body kind of sees it in the same manner to some extent. That's one thing that I've worked on a lot, is just managing my stress. It doesn't mean my life is any less stressful, but like I kind of know where that cusp is at.
Right.
And like sometimes just like food, I can go back. I'm like, fuck, you know what today is? It's that Tuesday I had. Like, it's that little window, that 4-hour window of chaos is like, and it's. I think to some people it sounds like a puss move. It's like, real lifters just go in there and just get it done. It's like, yeah, you can do that every once in a while, but like long term, like you need to have all those things structured and organized as well.
And is your training structured pretty good too? Do you try to like, especially when you're in contest prep, you try to lift around the same time every day and like kind of have like a schedule going? Yeah,
it just gets earlier and earlier because you know what your energy does, right? It starts to dwindle as the day goes on. That's probably the only thing. But yeah, in terms of, and that's where the rest of my life kind of benefits from it, because if I want to fit the bodybuilding thing in, I have to take care of all my other responsibilities.
Right.
So I just become very militant about things without knowing too. That's the awesome part.
Yeah, for me, I like the intermittent fasting quite a bit, just because like I like to kind of shotgun the first part of that day, and by 2 or 3, if there's other business stuff to do, if I still need to email or text or whatever, I just don't mind doing that stuff. But that's a time to get home, chill with the family. My kids are getting home from school. We're cooking up dinner, and it's just that's the way I kind of like to live my life. It works really well for me. But I like what you're saying too about how it's a big mistake people are making. They're putting their lifting first, which is fine, because if that's what makes you happy, then that's wise to put it first, because then you feel good, and then you can help other people around you and stuff. But it doesn't mean that everything else needs to be on hold. I think that's a ridiculous concept. Now, if you're trying to be the next like Jay Cutler, and then there's going to be some sacrifices that are going to be made. If you're trying to be the greatest at something, there's going to be some things, but still, you can build things simultaneously as you're going for something else. When I just talked to my brother about this the other day on the phone. He and I have been talking a lot about some of these different things, and his friend, a buddy of mine, is a real big guy. He's probably like 315 pounds, tons of muscle on him though too. He's big. He's big and he's strong, but he's also big and fat, and my brother's like, man, he's like, you gotta, he was out there on his phone, and my brother's teasing him. He's like, you gotta get your ass in the gym, man. And he's like, oh, I'm so busy with business now, it's hard for me to get in shape. And my brother's like, my brother's business is going pretty good, and he's in pretty good shape. And he said his buddy our buddy just rolled the window up and then took off down the street. he's kind of like, fuck off type thing. But, I'll toot my own horn. If you think about like when I was in the middle of my powerlifting career, I had both my children. They're both really, really young. Yeah. I'm building up super training gym. I'm building up 1,080 squats and 800 plus pound benches, and I'm building all these things up. And I'm also creating a slingshot and bringing Power Magazine to life. And I didn't have as many employees as I have now. And I'm very thankful and grateful that I have a good support system with my wife and with my parents and stuff like that. And my wife did, the job of 8 or 10 people that now work here. Is pretty crazy to think of. But you can get it all done. You can strive for these things. It's not all literally happening at the exact same time. No. This is over a period of this is a 12-year span that this took. The powerlifting portion of it was about 3 to 5 years. Yeah. People probably just think it's longer, but I have been powerlifting since the time I was a kid. But the 3 to 5 years that I was worth a shit in it, that's a pretty short period of time. Yeah, 3 to 5 years, not very long, And so, as you're striving to be a better bodybuilder, it doesn't mean that you don't need to have a job. It doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship. It doesn't mean that you can't have these other obligations.
Well, the whole idea of balance, like you've touched on this before, but it's like if you're going to be you're going to have to be off balance, Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. But, just kind of like the weights on your lifts go up.
But you can kind of recalibrate. You can kind of bring it back. You can be like, boom, bodybuilding. Okay, back to the girlfriend. Okay, powerlifting. Boom, back to right.
Well, and as your capacity goes up in other things, like this thing might be third on your priority list, but you do it better now.
Right.
Because you've increased your capacity to do shit across everything else.
More efficient at it too.
Yeah. So, balance is something that if you're going to do great things, you're going to have to go through some segments in your life when, I remember when we first started going as a company, man, no days off for like 2 years. No days off. Like right. I got myself a TV and I'm like, going to watch football on Sundays because you need this at this point in order to be effective. But I was so off balance. And like, luckily I had, good people around me that, saw the vision and knew what I was going for. But man, like to say I was balanced, no way. But like along with that, I kept up with other things. And as my capacity grew on that end, like I was just like, this might be fifth on the priority list, but I'm pretty fucking good at it because, I go right for it.
Right. You've been dedicated to it for a long time. You got something, Andrew?
Yeah, I was just because you had touched on it just barely in the beginning of the show. You said you wanted to be strong one more time. What's that mean?
I will just like there's a few weird PRs that you have in your head as a bodybuilder. I haven't squatted over 500 pounds since I was like 21, I think. 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
Beltless too, high bar.
Damn.
Yeah, leverages though. But no, I got all these like small injuries, and I'm like, you know what? Eventually, they'll really get in the way. So I feel I'm gonna bulk up one more time to a decent weight and try to get some of those in. Hey, performance is. It's like, why would you go to the gym and only get jacked? Like, that makes no sense to me. And it's kind of like the power lifter that's like, okay, I understand that you need weight on your side, but at the same time, it's like there's a middle ground. You probably perform better when you get to that middle ground. Same thing as a bodybuilder. You add a little strength, you'll see all your other work go up too. So, yeah, I want to be strong one more time. I can't compete in the USA. Like, at some point, my last meet going to the USAPL, I remember doing my math in my head. I'm like, if I get all my lifts, I can come in 4th or 5th. Now it's like, just have me somewhere in the middle of the pack and let's improve upon that. So, I don't know about powerlifting, but at some point, yeah, I'd like to get a few big lifts that matter to me. Super
That's
arbitrary lifts, yeah.
Yeah. Mark's, he's pretty much a master at helping people lose weight because he says, like, I've been fat before,
yeah,
and I'm not anymore. So I've been there. I can kind of coach you how to get down here now. Like, you've been skinny. I'm a super skinny dude. How do skinny people get big?
Oh, fuck. There's just genetic caps. I think that's one thing. But like, if you know thyself, like you know what your situation is, and you work with that. Like, I'll never look like Enzima in a shirt. Like, I understand.
It's because you're natural.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, the first time. So I remember I was telling him.
That's a big dude, man.
I remember Eric Helms, my colleague.
Hamstrings and shit. He's huge.
Yeah.
He was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, because there's a look, right?
Oh yeah.
So you look at Enzima, and it's like, you're huge, but there's a look that's like, I can see it.
Right.
You have to be around long enough to know the look. I can't even describe it to people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you're doing a little bit, there's a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if you're just to touch somebody, like if you grab a hold of Enzima, it's not like he's soft. I mean, he's a solid guy.
Yeah.
But he also doesn't feel like the monolift. He doesn't feel like he's made out of steel.
Exactly.
Like there's some suppleness to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Supple breasts.
But they were questioning. I'm like, trust me, this is a good kid, and I think he wouldn't lie to me. And just a freak of nature. But yeah, I'm not that guy. So I think that I learned to train before I learned to diet, because I think it had to come in that order. That I'd always at least look all right, if I just lifted weights. So I focus way more on that and super training. I remember that was like my first book. I tried to read it a few times.
That book's crazy. That book's crazy.
But I want to learn as much as I could about training, and like that's where I focused on for the longest time.
So what style of diet for a skinnier guy?
Oh, you gotta
I'm going to take advantage.
You gotta find those calories. You gotta find those calories. And I think sometimes for skinny guys, they don't like to gain the weight because, again, that transitional phase, you don't look so good.
Yeah.
Because, you put 30 pounds on him, like, it still looks all right. He still looks like he lifts, whereas like 30 pounds on some skinny guy that's making, it's not going to look right. And I think that's where guys turn back. They're like, no, I'm going to go back to, my little abs and stuff.
You think for somebody like him, he'd be better off, like working on getting leaner first and kind of seeing what that looks like? Or do you think he'd be better off in bulking and then cut? Because he's I don't think you've ever been like shredded either, right?
No. I've always been like just little belly and then skinny everywhere else.
Because, hey, we've been clowning on the fat power lifters, but you know what? They look like they call themselves fat, but at the same time, it's like, you don't look bad. You have a look to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the issue with most people when they start weight training. Like, you see this in gyms everywhere. They start off with the fat loss and the lifting weights. It's like, hey, just lift weights. It's going to change your body more than anything else. Just lifting weights. So I would go straight for the gaining phase and just be patient with it. Like, don't bail out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's kind of what Mark's having me do. I mean, right now he has me on a low carb diet, but for the most part, I mean, what really opened my eyes, because we were, because I was doing like a similar diet when he was doing the bodybuilding show, and I was like, ooh, I'm like finally getting like a flat stomach. Like, we were training every day, so I was getting size while still like leaning out. And I was, I told him, like, dude, I've never had a six pack, and I feel like I'm close. Like, let me keep going. And he's like, if you drop like 5 more pounds, you're just gonna be skinny.
Yeah.
Like, but if we add, like 10 to 15, you're gonna look good. I was like, all right, that makes sense. Let's just go ahead and eat up then.
And that's the trap, because losing fat's faster than gaining muscle. And for you, it's like, I can do that really well because my body likes to be skinny.
Exactly.
But the other way, it might take 6 months or so, but there's more for you there long term for sure.
Sure.
Most of my base was built, I think, honestly, the first like 2-3 years.
Cool.
Yeah.
a lot of this can be super frustrating. Like it's the same thing with getting stronger. Like I kind of reestablished a goal for myself, and I don't know where I'll sit with it. I'll be able to judge a lot better as I get closer to it. But I'd like to bench over 500 pounds at 220. Right now I'm about 240. So not only do I have to gain strength, but I got to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
So at first I was like, well, maybe I can get this done in like March or April. And then now I'm kind of rethinking it. I'm like, you know what? I always encourage people like just compete, like hit the platform. So now I'm like, I'll compete in January. This is just bench. I'll just bench, and like whatever I bench. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to even, if the 500 is close and I looks like I'm in striking distance, and I'll kind of go for it. But as I was explaining to somebody the other day, I was telling them like, more like April or something sounds like a lot more reasonable, because you're going to kind of bring your strength up, and then it's going to kind of dip back down, and you're going to bring it back up. You're going to kind of go up and down a bunch, because you're going to go through these different training phases. You're going to do sets of 6 and sets of 8 and sets of 4, and doing, things like 8 sets of 6 reps or 8 sets of 4 reps. That's where you're really like kind of building your strength, but you're not really testing it. But all that takes a long time. And, there's many different ways of doing it. People have, there's tons of ways of doing all this, but it just takes time, and you can't fast forward it. You can't tinker with it in any other way. It's going to take time. So if you're somebody that's listening to the podcast right now and you want to be leaner or you want to be heavier, these processes, they take time.
Yeah, that's the bad news, right? But at the same time, that's probably what got me in the most trouble early on, was just like not being a patient enough lifter. One thing I like to tell people is that like, hey, one rep actually can't make you, but it can break you.
Yeah.
And that's
true.
That's probably the one thing when you look at an athlete's like timeline. It's not like, it's not programming issues. It's not like getting off the diet here and there that like holds people back, but it's like injury.
Right.
Like that's probably the biggest thing that stops people from reaching their full potential. Show me a guy that like whether it be like in terms of body comp or strength gains, has been slow and steady and has had like less of those deviations because they're disabled in some way.
Right.
Like that's the person that's like sneaky.
Yeah, you want to kind of train yourself like you're training like your mom or something, or your girlfriend or something. You want to be really cautious.
Yeah.
Like of course you got to go for it here and there, and there's time and place, and there's other things you can kind of go for it on. Like go for it on the tricep push down.
Yeah.
Have at it over there and do crazy drop set or whatever. But when you're benching, squatting, deadlifting, and doing some of these main exercises, that's not a great time to like really roll the dice unless you've been training. Unless you've been training for it. If you're prepared for it, that's different. Then you can go for it.
Someone can totally take what you said and just make it a quote, like train yourself like your mom.
Yeah.
But in the context of it, it's I think what you're saying is like you got to be objective with yourself. You got to, the more you can guide yourself the way you would guide someone else, the more successful you're going to be. So it's like learning to be less emotional when it comes to, your decision making. Huge.
Yeah, you almost think about it like it's your job in a way. Like this is my job to help. I'm obligated to help this person get better. In this case, it just happens to be you.
Yes.
And you shouldn't really be missing lifts. You shouldn't be getting hurt. You shouldn't be in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
You're gonna get dinged up here and there. But if you're chronically in tons and tons of pain, then you have to kind of reevaluate. You're like, okay, maybe I'm doing this, a little, maybe I'm going about the wrong way, or maybe I need to wait a few more weeks to put in that much amount of work or whatever. You got to you can't be stupid with it and just keep doing the same old thing.
Yeah, no, but injuries, man. It's, like in bodybuilding, it's like the mental injuries. That's what it is. Like people just get like these eating disorders out the yang, man.
Oh, man.
And with powerlifting, it's like, you guys are actual athletes. So it's like,
Right.
That's what hurts. But with us, it's like the mental injuries, mostly because people try to subscribe to like diets that they're just not ready to handle right now. That's.
What about coming off of a show? That can be a real, right?
Well,
that can really be brutal, right? Someone gains 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and maybe they get a shitty comment from somebody or something. I mean, it can be demoralizing.
Yeah. One thing that we've been trying to push a little bit more is having a recovery phase when it comes to the coming out of a contest, because you're dinged up, man. In many ways, the whole system's dinged up.
Yeah.
like when you look at what is actual overtraining, and you look at the symptoms of, especially I think in drug-free bodybuilders, like they just suck for like 3 months.
Yeah.
You know, like what does that classify under? Like when you look at all the symptoms, right? You know, of like not wanting to go to the gym. You know, like maybe mild depression. You know,
maybe a severe depression.
it does happen. It does happen. But it's so that post-show like phase, it should be dedicated to recovering first. I know you're pumped up and you want to get back to work, but it's like recover first, and then you'll be in a position where you can actually like hurt somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be patient with it all. You know, it's hard to realize that, like, you know, 3 months of kind of reversing your way out of a bodybuilding show. Something like 3 months. Like, shit, man. Like, I don't want to wait that long. Well, it might take you 3 months to kind of recover from the show, and then it might take you another 3 months to prep for the next show.
Oh, tell me about this one though, because like the body dysmorphia thing, man.
Yeah,
like, that's for reals. It's when you're done with your show and you look at yourself, like you've never looked like this before.
Right.
Like getting away from that. Like that's such a like you just feel like you're regressing with you're used to improving every week, and now it's like the other side.
Right.
And this is where I think for bodybuilders, like my buddy Ryan Doris said this for the first time. Like, first time I heard this, but like you can't be wearing your muscles like accessories. Like you got to look at them like you're an athlete. You know, like,
right.
Like, you know, like a pitcher's not in the Starbucks line, like thinking about like, how's my, fastball look? You know, they're different things, but nevertheless, the more I look at myself as like, these are just tools. These are attributes specific for the sport. And my self-esteem doesn't come from like the way I look, but more so what I did to get the look.
I think that's why a lot of people get out of competing.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that get out of competing, but they still look fantastic. And, you know, a lot of times it's because of that. They're like, I kind of stopped because, you know, I hated like, you know, getting to, 5% body fat and then, 2 weeks later being 10. So I just lived my life at 8 to 10% body fat all the time, and I actually feel better. Yeah,
no, that's my plan when I'm done. I'm just going to look like pretty good all the time, you know? Because no, it is like even now that I know better, like when I'm coming at a show, I'm like, I look awful. I haven't looked this bad in like months, basically.
Jake Cutler had a saying when he was on our show, and it's like, it's a real kick in the nuts, but he says, don't be fancy, be consistent.
Yeah.
It's like, man, it sounds so much better to be fancy, though.
Yeah.
Sounds so much more appetizing to like, have these weird diets and to do all these weird, crazy things and to manipulate things all these weird ways. But Jay Cutler was a guy, he woke up every morning, he did his 45 minutes of cardio, he had his oatmeal and egg whites, and just every day. And
I appreciate that now.
Yeah, you're never going to catch Ronnie Coleman, and eventually he ended up beating him. You know.
Yeah, to me, it's like Ronnie and Jay, and like Ronnie was just like the man, and like Jay, I'm like, dude, you're so like missionary style. Like, but like, look at him now, and just he did pretty well, I'd say.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah, he ended up winning four Mr. Olympias, and he even came back from a bad injury and stuff like that. I mean, it's just, but that's what's going to have you out in front is figuring out a way, how, first of all, how do you string together some form of consistency? Yeah. Then once you get there, how the hell do you hold on to it?
Yeah, his process was not sexy at all, but boy, was it effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, that dude.
What do you do for those pipes over there?
That's actually the one thing I got to work on is my arms. Yeah. See, because you used to watching powerlifter arms, so that's what happened to Lane Norton when he decided to powerlift.
Yeah.
Remember he was deep into it, and I'm like, dude, you have like basketball player arms.
Right.
It's you spend all your time training those lifts. You just don't have time to,
right.
or the will to do it right. But no, arms are my thing I need to improve on. My legs are the only thing that kind of worth a damn, to be honest. And I think it's just because I enjoy the big core lifts. Like, that's the one thing when you got up on that stage, you had the hamstrings, bro. Like, you see a lot of bodybuilders up there, they won't do that stuff, and they look like leg extension warriors.
Right.
Like, their trunks are all, like, saggy in the back.
Right.
So no, I think my physique kind of reflects the way I like to train, and I was really influenced by strength athletes early on.
Yeah, when I went and I was lucky enough to have Charles Glass kind of check out some of my posing and stuff, and he's like, holy crap, he's like, you got hamstrings.
Yeah.
He's like, a lot of times you guys don't have hamstrings. He's like, which doesn't sound right because you deadlift and things like that, but he's like, a lot of times you guys don't have hamstrings. I'm like, man, I've been paying attention, man. I've been trying to train everything,
Yeah.
you know, my whole life pretty much. And the hardest thing for me was my arms, because I did have some tears and stuff, and then lack of mobility. You know, you don't realize that having some mobility up on stage to be able to hit some of those poses properly actually makes a big difference.
Oh, that's my hardest part. I don't like to pose in the off season because it's just
It hurts.
and it's not very flattering.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you get up to like getting into all those, like it's hard, man. But no, your hamstrings are ridiculous. I think a lot of it comes from like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of because you did the geared powerlifting, and the posterior chain is so important for that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you guys do a ton of work with that, so it shows.
Yeah, it was like reverse hyperextensions and the glute ham raise a lot, and the box squats.
Yeah.
You know, handling, all those big weights that I did, I think ended up making a big difference. Ended up showing up on game day, which was important.
And I feel like the muscles you prioritize early just kind of stay with you your whole life.
Yeah.
You know, like especially like when you're younger, like the first things that like get the biggest boost, like they just kind of tend to stick. Partially genetic, but I also feel that plays a big role in that.
Yeah, you got to be kind of on point with it. You know quite a bit about reverse dieting, so when you diet down for a show, or these people that are just forever locked into fitness and they're not eating anything, and they're kind of overdoing it all the time. What's this principle of reverse dieting? What is this about?
So we countered that recently with what is coined the recovery diet. And that's just because it was taking people too long to feel right post-show, mentally and physically. So what we started to do is, and we have a video on this on YouTube, it's called the recovery diet. And we encourage people, see if I get these numbers right. So these are generic recommendations. The first 4 to 6 weeks, you gain back 5 to 10% of your body weight. And what this does is this, I think most people feel like they're doing it wrong if they do it right, because you put on this fat like immediately, but you need that to look right. Because a lot of people, they'll come out of the show and they're like, yeah, I think I was too fat in my off season, and I think I'm going to stay like this. No one ever stays like that. You end up more or less where you started, maybe a bit more reasonable, but you do.
Everybody always thinks they're going to stay in that shape, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, no, it doesn't work. I've yet to see it happen. So we encourage people to get to 5 to 10% above contest weight. And when you look at that, it's like, remember how excited you were on the way down when you got to that point, and how good you thought you looked. But it's just because, mentally you're so plagued with, you've seen yourself in the ultimate shape that looks bad now, but you were excited on the way down. So we encourage people to get to that point. So the biggest surplus that people see post-show in their off-season is actually immediately after the show. And then we get them in something more sustainable. And I think it helps people start improving faster. And a lot of the slip-ups that you see post-show with people, they're minimized because they're eating more than enough every day chronically.
So you're almost saying like get that weight on, at a reasonable pace, but like get that weight back on, because it's going to come anyway.
It is. Yeah.
And if we do it like too slowly, then maybe we're kind of just drawing out the process. But if you slap on 5 to 10%, let's just say you slapped on 5% of your body weight, you gain some of that weight back. Then maybe your body can start to, the faster you do that, the faster your body can start acting normal again.
Exactly.
Is that about right?
Yeah, your body and your mind, obviously. So that's something we kind of made an about face on. Like I used to like bring people up super slowly post-show, and if you're out there, I apologize if I did that to you.
Well, you're learning, right? You learn from working with these people, and it's great that you're making adjustments to it.
So yeah, that was a big one. That was a huge one. So that's how we do things now post-show. It was my first time ever doing it after this contest season. And it was a little uncomfortable, even though I had guided people through that process. Doing it on myself, I'm like, you're about to blow up to 190 like in 3 weeks in front of everyone.
You're gonna blow,
but it worked out.
Gonna get huge.
I'm not gonna do it any other way now. It's always post-show, like bring training down even a little bit.
Andrew, ask this guy some marijuana questions.
Oh man.
I think it's his favorite topic.
It is?
How do people, like, I would say assume, but how do they know? Like, do I give that vibe?
It's the hair, bro.
I was going to say, it's the hair.
Bathroom. I'll be right back.
But no, it's Mark's joking. But what's your, you were saying that your friends are going to get a kick out of Kratom. What's that all about?
Oh, no. So I started to use that on my Fridays, maybe about a year ago. Yeah. So it's like my end of the week treat to have a weekend possibly. Because, it just... I think sometimes just taking something ends up being part of your routine, and you're like, okay, when I take this, it's time to. When I have my coffee, it's time to. it's time to work, so to speak. Yeah. So with that, that's kind of what it's been. I would not recommend it for people who are like have personalities that are addicted to something and like 1 day a week turns into like 3 days a week. But that's like with everything else, and I'm pretty good at that.
You can handle it.
Yeah, for some reason, which makes no sense. But like, because bodybuilders usually are not very good at that stuff. But you know how it is. You start with 200 milligrams of caffeine pre-workout,
and then all of a sudden you're taking the whole pre-workout tub.
You're hitting a gram a day. Yeah. So yeah, I think like anything else, moderation.
Yeah. Somebody, his name is Anthony, on the live chat had asked to simplify his question. How can we better have better absorption of the calories we're trying to take in? So like for someone like me, like if I just like, okay, tomorrow or whatever, like from now till next week, I'm going to every day try to up my calories. How can I make sure that I'm not just wasting them?
Okay. So we're talking about like gaining weight.
Yeah.
I think people don't sit on an intake long enough to determine what it's doing. I think for gaining, you got to wait 3 or 4 weeks before you can say this is doing this. It's kind of like program hopping. People do calorie hopping all the time.
Yeah.
So digestion, your body's really good at that. Our human body's like great at getting fat. So it's going to take care of all that stuff. The only digestive stuff that I see, it can be a problem for some people, is sometimes bodybuilders try to eat foods that are way too clean, especially when their calories are really high. It's like, have some rice, dude, like get some stuff that's easy. That and maybe you're eating things that you're semi-allergic to because you feel like you have to because it's part of the cultural aspect of bodybuilding. But no, sit on your intake. Like whatever you decide, kind of like your program. Hey, wait on it. Like don't say it's guilty of like not working. Like a week into it. Like wait a little bit.
Yeah. That's tough for me because I mean we talk about it on this show all the time. I poop so much.
One of my favorite sayings is actually my friend Joey Flex, who is sick powerlifting coach. I love that dude. So shout out to Joey. But
what's up, Joey? I know Joey Flex.
That dude is talk about just a blue collar dude that just knows how to make people strong. Is the whole saying is like stay in the pocket. Stay in the pocket. Like your payout will be bigger if you just like all this stuff's going on, but don't be distracted. Stay in the pocket. Don't make a change. So sometimes the best change is the change that you don't make.
Makes sense.
That's hard to do. Yeah.
That's why it makes sense because it's usually it's the hardest thing to do is to be patient.
Yeah.
What you just told me earlier is just be a little more patient.
Oh, happy feet, man. People get them. Yeah.
I know, man. But I want to be so big and strong and jacked.
Yeah, it does. It does take it takes a long time to acquire any sort of size, right? I heard you guys, kicking it about kratom as I had to run off and pee because I'm fasting, and when I fast, the whole morning I just pee my brains out a lot of times. Especially like last night I had some carbs and stuff too, so it makes it even worse. Something like that's flushing out of my system, so I'm just peeing nonstop. But you guys were kicking it about kratom a little bit, and I know that you like to smoke a little bit. What is the smoking? What does it do for you?
With me, it's just sleep. Like I don't even really use it to party. Like like
helps you snooze.
Yeah, I'll see a good movie, and I'll do that, and
helps you chill and relax.
But I like to be with certain things. I like to be a lightweight with. Yeah, it's way more fun when it's that way. So, same thing with the kratom is like I was telling him is like my Friday treat. Like whenever I need to close in the week to like get in all my major work in so that I can have a weekend of some sort. Like that's part of my routine. So
today's not Friday.
No, I got so much.
You got peer pressured into it.
Damn it, I got tricked. But I said yes. I'm like, what is that? I can smell it from here. But yeah, no. When it comes to anything, honestly, most people ask me about like alcohol, marijuana, kratom. I'm like, I don't recommend it because most people don't know how to handle their stuff. We're bad. Like most people can't even handle pre-workout. We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Starts with 200 milligrams, and they're using 600 just to, go have an arm day.
Well, people lose control, and that's why, like the old idea of flexible dieting, where people are always talking about these Pop-Tarts. It's like, well, that might be okay, and that might fit into someone's plan. That you write it down, and you got the calories accounted for. Yeah, we get it, but that might just lead to you being out of control.
Most people can't handle it. That's you got to know what you can handle. That's so key.
And if you look at like a low carb diet, cheating on a really low carb diet would be eating a big old plate full of carbs, right? Yeah. Cheating on something like flexible dieting would be the overconsumption of calories. And you would have to pick which one would be harder for you, but you do need to pick one.
You're gonna have to restrict something, and like self-inflicted restriction is so hard. So when it comes to marijuana usage, when it comes to your carbohydrates, it's hard. So
I'm just gonna have one drink.
That's my problem. I'm not lightweight when it comes to the beer. But everything else, I'm not alcoholic by any means, but I handle really well, and I think that's been a key to like me doing okay when it comes to extracurriculars, so to speak.
Well, the dedication with lifting can help teach you that. The dedication, the manipulation of the diet, the dedication, the manipulation of the cardio training, all these things are things that can play into you looking at other situations and trying to rationalize them. You know, I'm getting ready for a bodybuilding show, and I'm 12 weeks out, so I'm going to do 20 minutes of cardio 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And then you're going to add more as it gets closer, you know. All right, I'm in the off season, and I'm going to drink a little bit here and there. Going to not even worry about diet on the weekend at all. I'm just going to like sleep in and like just not worry about it, and just you can make a more reasonable assessment of like what the hell's going on in your life when you make yourself so dedicated, because ultimately what we're working on is we're working on ourselves.
Yeah, that's what this all comes down to. It's not even about lifting weights, man. It is, but it isn't. You know,
That's what I always say. Yeah,
which is so strange.
Mm-hmm.
It's so strange. I thought it was about lifting weights for the longest time, and the longer you do it and you get good at it, that's when you realize it's not just about this.
It kind of reminds me of that scene in the Matrix. You know, the key is that there is no ball or whatever it is he's trying to make like float or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's the key here, is that it could be anything else.
Yeah.
You know, it just happens to be lifting weights, but we could be talking about a dedication to skiing, dancing, whatever the hell it might be.
Hey, and I think per capita, like our population of like true like meatheads have done it for a minute. Like I think there's the stereotype that, you know, we're this way and that's all we do, and it's like it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. Like I've met some of the most brilliant, hardworking, get shit done people who contribute that happen to lift weights. Like Stan's a crazy example. The more I learn about Stan, I'm like, whoa, like really? And you did the powerlifting and you did the IFB. Like,
right.
It doesn't surprise me when I look at his resume.
Yeah, he's a freak.
Yeah,
and all the information he's sharing now with his vertical dietness. Have you looked into any of that?
Hey, it's a great habit building. I think a lot of people don't know why it works.
Right.
But like, it doesn't matter. Does it really matter if it works?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's just basing his diet around the nutrients that the body needs. So it's no surprise that it works. You start to kind of, a lot of people were looking at the macronutrients. He's looking a little bit more at the micronutrients, and again, it's like you start to break it down, and okay, we're going to eat like lean red meats, and we're going to have some berries and carrots and these other. We're still controlling calories.
Yeah.
But one thing I find refreshing about what he has done, and I'm sure other people have done it in the past, but he doesn't look at cheese as like protein and fat necessarily. He doesn't just limit it to that. He's like, that's your calcium source for the day. And it's like, man, that's kind of a cool way to look at food. Is that this is productive for me more than it just being calories. This is really productive. This is things that my body needs. Because I think when we think about calories, or if we think about, there's kind of the stigma around fat, but if we think about like calories, we're kind of thinking that it's like doing something negative to us, even though we fully know we need energy. True. Like we know that we need energy, but at the same time, you look at it and you're like, oh man, it's kind of just making me fatter.
Yeah.
But now if you got someone saying, no, look, we need these omega-3s, you need your vitamin C, you need your vitamin B, your vitamin D, like this is really nutritious for you. This is going to help not only help you with your aesthetics, but this is going to help you with your performance.
And I mean, all the initial diets that I followed, I was like very focused on training and not so much the nutritional side of things. They were all super easy to follow, comprehensive systems that I was able to build upon from there.
Yeah.
But what I didn't need to do is like sit there and like think sometimes. I just needed to replace a lot of, again, the behaviors. And I think that's what diets like the ketogenics, sometimes for people, the macronating thing, does that for them.
Yeah.
But you need to learn a little something, follow something, commit to something, And then once you've committed to something long enough, then you can like change and adjust. But that's the biggest thing is people just want to hop from one hype to the next hype. And it's like, no, you just need to. I've done some shitty things in terms of like my decision making when it comes to like lifting, when it comes to eating, but I stuck to them and I worked really hard under those guidelines. And that gets you pretty darn far.
How'd you get into bodybuilding in the first place?
What happened? Well,
what happened? That's what I'm asking you.
Well, as I started lifting...
What happened, bro?
Weights, because it was cool, and I liked the way it made me feel. And it wasn't until I wanted to run track in college. I wanted to do that. My coach really got in me. He's like, hey, if you really commit to this, you can do pretty well. You could at least get some free college somewhere. So, but I kept having my left foot kept busting up on me. I kept dealing with these stress fractures. So it was the first time prior to that I was like, combining sports and lifting weights. I'd make gains and then lose them, make gains and then lose them. And I gave myself a full year to just lift weights, and I never came back. And then I saw Lane Norton prep online, and I'm like, this is pretty cool because he started 20 weeks out, and then he's like, I'm going to be in shape in 20 weeks. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't like make it happen like that. And I saw that happen. I'm like, that is pretty awesome, and I want to do that, and I want the freak look. So that's what got me going, and it's just I love the process. I love the creating a goal, crush it, creating a goal, crush it, and that's what got me hooked on bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding is really crazy. When you look at someone and they say that they're going to do something and get in shape and get on stage, you're like, no, you ain't.
Yeah.
You ain't going to do that. Like, that's too hard, man. You're not going to be. What are you talking about? You're going to go from 15% body fat down to 5 or 6 or whatever. It's like, how's that going to happen?
Every time I start a prep, I'm like scared a little shitless because I'm like, do I still have this in me? Do I still have that gear? And it's crazy. Like once you're like deep into it, it's like that's all you know. That's all you know. And I'm addicted to that feeling.
One thing I think is really interesting about weight loss. I've dropped weight a bunch of different times in my lifetime, and it's interesting how like that beginning part of it, you're right away. You're like, oh yeah, I still got it, and you drop 10, but then it's still always hard to kind of really keep it moving. It's hard to, keep that momentum. When you're doing bodybuilding and you're getting in shape for these shows, are you finding as you get a little older that it's a little harder to get in shape, or does it feel about the same, or is it easier?
You know what? I haven't noticed a difference yet. I if anything, it keeps getting easier and easier. Like my last prep, I spent a good chunk of it not even at home, just kind of going around and doing things. It was actually like my best year professionally while I was doing that.
Oh, that's cool.
So that meant a lot. I'll never do it that way again. I think next time I'm just going to consolidate 3 months to like, let's just stay at home and only do that.
Yeah.
But I needed that challenge.
Yeah.
So I guess I've found ways to make it a little bit more challenging by adding these little sub goals to it. There was this one prep where this is my last like real job. I was setting up after school programs in Oakland, California. And I'm like, okay, my goal is to like have no one here know that I was dieting. Like that's my goal. I never want to bring it up. I don't want my performance to go down. So, along with that, I think I've almost found it easier because I know what works for me and I know what it's going to kind of look like, that I just add on little things to just make it more challenging and more rewarding at a personal level because it's a subjective sport. You can go in there, you can be in your best shape and get like last place. That was actually my pro debut. I got last place after creaming all the amateur shows. And I'm like, okay, I need other things outside of the placing to keep me happy.
Right.
So, no, it's gotten easier, I think.
It's easier to have other shit going on almost.
Yeah, and I think also you get older, you get more boring. So starving yourself is kind of the fun part now. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess too. You're getting more efficient at it, and also too. I mean, a lot of people's like maturity wise, in terms of like muscle and strength, they continue to kind of grow sometimes into like their mid 40s.
Yeah. What's up with Dave Ricks?
Yeah, I know.
That dude's still deadly.
He's still killing people.
Yeah. So that's my goal. I want to enjoy the sport for a super long time. And I want this, like even when like my skills go down in some way, I'm going to find other things to make this productive and make this still a challenge and do things that I've never done before.
What's your mission with all this? Do you like coaching bodybuilding? Do you want to try to help other people outside of bodybuilding?
I think our mission as a team 3D Muscle Journey is to just like leave it better than we found it so that next generation can come in. Then we ain't got to get credit for it, but just build upon that and just keep making it better and better. Because, man, talk about like this sport like refined me. Like this whole like lifting of weights just changed me as a person. So I want other people to discover that, and when they get there, there's just you start off at a better place. I see that with the USAPL. Like all these kids, man, you guys showed that deadlift video of me. Like we used to like not pull the slack. It was just like whiplash and pull.
Yeah, it looked like a stiff leg deadlift. Yeah,
right, sumo stiff leg. So all these kids are coming in now, and I think that's partially why they're getting so strong. Is that like we've made all them errors for them, and from day one, like it's like if this 21-year-old kid is 74 kilos and out squatting like over 500 pounds, it's like that used to be a freaky thing, and now it's kind of becoming the standard. But it's because the education that's out there is a little better.
Yeah, people are lifting some crazy weights right now. The females, especially. I mean, the guys the guys are crushing it too. But man, I don't really know if I thought it was possible to see girls, squatting and deadlifting 500 pounds kind of routinely now.
Yeah. It used to be that one powerlifting chick in every group. It was one, like 20 dudes, one chick. Yeah. And now it's like, it's pretty 50-50. And the perks I think women are starting to realize is like that look that you want, like whatever you did before to try to get a better body composition, right? Weightlifting does that for you.
I think a lot of the girls that do bodybuilding and figure competitions, I think a lot of times after their show, they'll post a picture and they're like, I'm not afraid to post this or whatever. And you're like, well, you shouldn't be. You look amazing. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But they usually look better, after the bodybuilding show. And the guys, I mean, it's a little different. The guys start to look kind of gnarly and the face comes in and stuff like that. But and some of the guys, you might be able to say the same thing. You might be able to say they look a little better after the show. But the girls, there's definitely like the look that the powerlifting girls and the CrossFit girls end up acquiring. I think most people would agree, hey, like that's pretty damn attractive.
It's way more appealing to the general population, and I think that's why it's one of the reasons it's been growing. And I'm with you, man. I didn't think this would happen. I didn't think USAPL has those 284 kilo gals squatting like over 500 pounds.
Oh my God!
Right, like that's out of this world.
That's crazy. You got Jen Thompson, benching like 315, 325 pounds.
And she looks good. It's like you see her.
She looks great.
And you're like, wow, like I think my mom can look at that and be like, I think I'd like some shoulders and triceps to look like that when I'm wearing a dress,
Yeah, she's jacked. She's got some arms on her. Unbelievable.
So no, I'm connected to the powerlifting world. Even I go to USAPL Nationals, every big meet that I can go to, I try to go to, because that is what, like, being strong, I think, came before the lifting of the weight. So to see that, I think it's healthier for most people do. I think because you did it in the right order. Yeah. You got strong, build your base, and then you're like, hey, I'm gonna try to rearrange some things, and then it was just like a small little step, I think, relatively speaking, compared to the way other people just go straight into like, hey, this bikini chick looked good, I think I'm gonna try to emulate her, and it's like you have no idea what you're getting into at all.
With the bodybuilding show, it was a little weird for me because like I've never done a show before, and I don't know, I was having fun with it, and I was having a good time, and like I don't know, I just thought the show was going to be fun, and I thought everybody around would be fun, and I'm like making jokes and stuff, and the other guys are just like staring a hole in me, and I'm like, oh, these guys are.
That's how it is.
These guys are pretty serious, They're like way into their routines and their. But I guess for me too, like one thing I didn't think of until after the show, I was like, what? I actually didn't really think about it. Those guys are actually probably really nervous to get on the stage itself.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I was like, I forgot. Like I've been doing that for a while. I did professional wrestling for a while and did a bunch of other things where I put myself out there in front of cameras and in front of different things. And so then I kind of rethought about it. I was like, oh, they probably weren't assholes. They're probably just really, really nervous about just even getting on stage, period.
Also, we don't eat. Like when I go to a big party, like everyone's super cool. And like, whereas like with bodybuilding,
we're eating donuts.
Yeah, everyone's just like, just like, it's like that crankiness that they experience, like it's amplified the day of. But no, we're cranky backstage. I remember one of my fellow coaches, he got growled at before he got on stage. Like this one dude took it way too serious, looks at him and just like growls at him, and he's like, okay, but does not surprise me.
Yeah, because people are kind of losing their minds, right? When you're dieting for a show, like where do your calories kind of start and like where do they end?
I think I changed maybe 200, 300 calories. So it's pretty straightforward. So I'm fortunate enough that it's very, very straightforward. I change a little something and it makes a huge impact. So I probably...
Are you super hungry going into the show or not really? Not too bad.
That's a skinny guy thing. Like, I don't know what hunger is necessarily. Like, there's been many times where I'm like, I feel wonky, I feel weird. And then someone hands me something I'm like, oh, that's what it was.
Right.
So the whole hangry thing. I remember walking with Bryce Lewis through an airport. We're presenting in
There's a weird thing by some skinny people. They're like, oh, I just thought about it. I didn't even eat anything
Exactly.
today. You're like, what the fuck?
Bryce Lewis gets hangry. He gets hangry, and he's like 230 pounds and like 5'6". And
Yeah.
remember...
He's a little chubster, that guy. Bryce, if you're listening, sorry, buddy. Got some junk in the trunk.
He used to do the bodybuilding. Did you know that?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I've seen pictures. He was in pretty damn good shape.
It's mind-blowing. He'll have a midlife crisis and come back at some point, I think.
Oh, he'll be back.
Yeah.
Yeah. After he, deadlifts and squats 800 pounds and benches over 500.
What a freak.
Yeah, he's a mutant. With other people that you work with, do you have to really reduce their calories a lot?
Yeah. So a lot of people are much more adaptive. I think the first place people go to is like they're adaptive metabolically, but we've actually seen this in the research that it's not as big as we think. I think the biggest things that change, it's like your body weight plays a huge role. So someone who maybe starts at 200 pounds at a prep, they're just going to burn more calories at rest compared to someone who's like the same person but at 170. So that's a big thing. You're missing a big chunk of your body weight. And then the other thing is some people, when you take away food, like that's a big thing. I don't get very slothy. Like I'm still pretty animated. And that's a huge part of your expenditures. It's not even the weightlifting, but it's the stuff outside of the gym. So,
lifting's like 20% or 10%. It depends on what study you read, right? So
it's not very much.
Not a lot, yeah.
But, how you probably walk around here when you're well fed versus like in a contest prep diet is probably significantly different, and that adds up. So your body finds ways to adapt and like be more frugal via just getting you to like, hey, like stop moving to this music, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I heard Lane kind of talk about that before, where he just not even like could be something like could be humming, because he's hearing a song or hearing a beat, and then in contest prep he just like won't.
Yeah.
And he'll just talk less. He'll fidget less. He'll move his hands around less. Like all that.
That's a huge part of your expenditure. Especially, it really is. And, that goes. Like starting your set, like, is hard, right?
Oh no, it was a big part of it for me, coming down to the end of the, towards competing. It was just only like the last 2 or 3 days where it was really hard. But I was also doing like 90 minutes of cardio.
Yeah.
I was doing a crazy amount of cardio. So for me, that made it hard because it was cardio 2 times per day for 45 minutes a clip, along with the lifting. And it was like, man, that was crazy. Hani Rambod wanted to see some striated glutes. So that's what he had me going for. I'm like, I don't think you understand how big my butt was before I started this whole thing. I was like, I got a big ass. And so I'm like, I don't think we're going to end up with striated glutes. I did at one point as we were going through all this, and there's times where they'll kind of bring everything way down in terms of your calories and your food requirements and stuff, where I did start to see some striations in my butt, and I was like, whoa.
Weird, huh?
But once he brought the carbs back in and stuff, I wasn't quite able to have the striations in there. It was kind of funny too. Like when I was getting tanned up, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, or when I was getting the what do they call that, the shine, or what do they call that?
Oh yeah, the glaze.
The
Look
glaze.
at them hamstrings, man.
Yeah, the glaze.
Ooh.
Yeah, when they were talking about the glaze, I didn't know like when I was supposed to do that, or I just didn't know what I was doing. And so they're like, oh, yeah, it's time for you to, go do that or whatever. And so I pop in there, and it's just all girls in there because, like, I missed, like, when all the guys did it or whatever. And they're like, oh, go ahead because you got to go on stage or whatever. And all the girls are looking at my butt, and they're like, we want our butts to look like your butt. But I was just laughing. I was like, well, first thing you need to do is get up to 330 pounds and do a lot of powerlifting.
Hey, the big thing, it's the way you lift, like that posterior chain. Like I'm proud of that because it takes a lot. Like the hamstrings and glutes, that's all hard work.
You're proud of my glutes?
Yeah, they were.
You're not just saying that.
No, you'll get some lines in those next time. You'll see.
I know.
There will be a next time, right?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
And you see, it gets easier, man. Like your coping skills with the diet, like coping while training while underfed, all that stuff just elevates every time. It gets a little better.
Have you ever been able to get in really good shape without a bodybuilding show?
Yeah. So
Like with that one, like lined up.
Yeah. So usually when before I start my prep, I'll just get myself like, this is my fighting weight. This is I can lift well. I'll get myself a little bit closer.
Right.
So I don't like to lose more than 12% of my body weight when I start a prep. So I'll get myself pretty close. It's like, honestly, it's like the look. Like if the casual person would tell me, you look your best right here.
Yeah. You don't look like you're going to die.
So I do that, and then I'll just hang around there for a minute and reestablish what I have to do to, like, all the habits. Because right now my habits, they kind of have to be, and I like them to, I get off the gas a little bit. But yeah, I like to be reasonable when I start. So I'll rock that for a minute before I press the button.
What are some things that you allow yourself to do? When you're not competing, like there's some things where, in your head, like the right, quote unquote, right and wrong way, but you're just like, you know what? I can't really think about that right now. I need to just allow myself to just be.
So when I'm not prepping?
Right.
Ooh, I think a big thing is I'm a little bit more flexible with my training. I think that's a huge one. When I'm prepping, it's like it keeps me going. Like even though, will it make a difference or not if I push a day back? But it's like, no, it's just this mental momentum that I need to keep going. So I'm more flexible with like when I train. I think a big thing is I probably enjoy alcohol a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because you can fit it into your diet, but like when you get to that point, it's like, okay, so would I rather have these 400 calories worth of wine? Like, would I rather have 400 calories go to wine, or would I rather like just add some rice cakes?
Right.
What's going to impact the bottom line better? So I end up going with that most of the time.
Right.
Like easy, right? So I think those are the two best things. The two things that I enjoy the most is like I get to have a drink here and there with my friends, and then I hang around with powerlifters back home. So, they're not about the Tupperware life. So I get to do that, and just the being like, I don't feel like there's as much urgency to train all the time.
Yeah, I think that kind of like that idea of like I got to do something every day. It's good to kind of keep that reserved for when you got to step on a stage. And for me, with the bodybuilding thing, I was like, I'm just going to train I'm just going to try to do something every day.
Yeah.
End up taking off one day, and when I took off that one day, it actually felt amazing because I probably really needed it at that point.
Yeah.
There's something about bodybuilding that I think that people, that everyone should experience. I think everybody should try. I think everyone should maybe try to get on a bodybuilding stage at some point, just because there's no other way to make it that drastic.
Yeah.
There's no other way to make it that crazy. Or maybe even just, have yourself accountable with like a photo shoot or something. But when you hear people talk about like carbing up or deplete, deplete your body of carbohydrates and then refeed and all these different things. I've always hated the term refeed. I was like, that's a garbage. That's such a stupid, such a super stupid term. And what I hated about it was, I'm like, you're probably not really that depleted anyway.
Yeah.
But if you're doing bodybuilding and your coach says, hey man, go have some carbs, well, now you'll know what it really feels like to be depleted and to actually get a real carb up, because you'll start eating those carbs. And it's almost like you have a pump as if you were training, but you're not doing anything. You're just eating. You're like, oh my God, what's happening? Your skin's bursting, veins are pumping.
Most people don't know like what it's like to get a pump while you're sitting down, you're chowing down. It's crazy. But no, like I don't like the word refeed because it insinuates it like you just haven't been eating, and it's like no, you're actually okay. You're probably in a first world country, and you're starving yourself strategically with a high protein diet. You're not dying by any means.
Well, everybody just thinks it means just like go in and gorge on these crazy foods, and it's like, well, maybe that's not a good strategy for you if you're trying to lose weight or whatever the goal might be.
I like high carb day. That's my lingo when I describe that. But that whole being in tune with your body, like having a carb pump, most people have no idea what that is. It's again, and that's the part about the prep is like that you like any sporting endeavor, but I think marathon runners like have never done one, but I think they probably talk to themselves as well as they're doing their thing. You're in your own head, and the same thing with bodybuilding. It's like it's a few months long. And the whole time you're just having this internal dialogue with yourself, and maybe that voice in your head that that tells you to quit, that tells you to like this is too hard. Like it pops up every time, and you need to learn to shut that dude down.
You talk to yourself a lot.
Oh yeah,
a lot of self-talk.
Oh, absolutely. I'm big on that. I didn't realize how powerful that was until it's like the stuff you tell yourself you believe.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. So if it's like
Oh,
the
I'm
other way
not good
around.
at that. I can't do that. I'm not good at that. Nope.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, then you're stuck there forever.
Because we know people that are
I'm not
oblivious the other
organized.
way.
Don't give me any paperwork. I can't do
Yeah.
it. And it's like, well, what the hell kind of attitude is that?
Yeah.
How do you know you're not good at it? Have you actually really tried it?
Yes,
Have you actually
yes.
given yourself an honest shot? Because maybe if you practiced being organized as much as you practice lifting, maybe you could actually be great at it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can just do it once in a while so you're efficient at it enough so that you can, whatever the hell it is. I mean, I know some guys that are talented on the end of being creative, but like I've used them for work before and then they can't produce me they can't produce me like a purchase order or a receipt or something. Like I'm like, dude, in order for me to give you a check, like this is the way business works.
Yeah.
You need to email me something so we can produce a check for you, so we got like a record of it, and you get paid appropriately. And that's like I can't just like randomly PayPal you money. My business doesn't work that way. But then these people that are talented in one way, they fall way short in another, and they're like, I don't know how to do that. you know, those kinds of things, and it's like. Well, you don't know how to do it because you probably haven't really tried. Have you asked somebody or someone can coach you through it? I'm sure probably punching up a couple buttons on a computer and you'd probably be fine.
I mean, a lot of those people that are really good at that one thing, right? When you see them handle their business on that end, it's like, look how crafty you are, and look how you're just getting it done, and you're going from here to that, and just like on a whim, basically.
Yeah.
They give them something else that they feel like they're not good at, and it's just different, and it's hard for different reasons. They just like they bail out right away. But the self-talk, that's what it's done to me. It's like there's things that I've in the past I've told myself, and I started to believe, and it's like, well, hold up, if it works this way, I can probably reverse it the other way too, and that might not be me yet, but I'm gonna convince myself that hey, at some point I'll be the lightweight champion of like the bodybuilding world, the natural bodybuilding world. So, but I keep telling myself that, and that's how I approach my training. Like that's what it's for, and that's who I am.
You know what? Too, it's like you go after that goal. You talk about that goal, you go after that goal, and who knows what journey you'll end up on, or who knows exactly how it will work out. But you tried it.
Yeah.
You went through it. Maybe you try it 1 year and you're second place, and then you try it again the next year and you're first place. Like who knows how it will actually play out? But if you don't even set the goal in the first place and you don't put a deadline to it, then it's certainly not going to ever happen.
And if you do it right, I mean, look at why'd you start lifting, right? It was, it was very simple, right?
Yeah.
And look what grew out of that, right?
Throw around some weights, and then, next thing you know, we got all this stuff going on over here.
Started very innocent and simple, but it snowballs.
How do you make money?
I coach athletes, and we have it's a new product. It's called the 3D Muscle Journey Vault, and it's just online courses.
Oh, cool.
That pertain to
education.
Yep. So that's what we're trying to get a little bit more into, and this next year, because it's gonna be our 10-year anniversary as
that's
a
awesome.
company. 10 years, dude.
That's cool.
We're gonna try to grow a little bit more on that end.
Just some friends being some meatheads.
All this, we collected each other backstage of shows. That's how it worked out. It's like, hey, you're weird like me. Let's
right.
let's hang out, and like here we are.
That's cool. And with this vault program, like you're trying to actually kind of like give people coaching, or are you trying to teach people how to be coaches themselves, or?
Ooh, a little bit of both. So many different topics in there. We have things like from fat loss to like muscle growth, to even like we have one special case course. It's so one of our coaches, Brad Loomis, has the gnarliest scoliosis. Like his spine is almost like touching, like on both ends, right? And just his perspective and his angle on how he handled that, and so there's a little bit of everything. We don't want it to be just like for, the meathead nerd. A little bit of everything in there. But we're working on it. That's a new dynamic for us. It's a new direction. But you can help way more people when you do it that way, as opposed to like I'm limited to who I can reach.
Right. And then about how many people do you physically kind of work with at a time?
Ooh, I don't have too many. Maybe about 30 to 35 is as many as I have in my roster, and that's it.
And is that kind of all over the map? Like some might be bodybuilding, some might be powerlifting.
Yeah.
People doing different things.
A little bit of every. I have some people that they're prepping, and that's what we're doing. We have other folks that are that are power lifters, and so we're doing that. And then I have even like now power lifters that come strictly for the nutrition. So that's been, it's a little bit of everything. I
That's
like
cool.
that. Yeah.
What's the hardest part? What's the hardest part for people to adapt to when you're trying to help them with these diets?
I think being honest with me about what they can handle. That's probably the biggest thing. And sometimes they don't necessarily like what you tell them they can't handle it right now. But it's like, hey, you got to start squatting with one plate before we add more. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that I have to slow people down a little bit. And it's like, you know what? We might not get there as fast as you like, but I'm going to try to make it so that we have as many like little setbacks, as many like the least amount of setbacks as possible over the course of a long time.
Yeah, I noticed that when it comes to women, a lot of times when you give a woman a program, a lot of times they'll follow it to a T, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas the guys, you know, they'll kind of take liberties.
That's because we know how to lift weights. I think that's kind of the.
That's right.
Whereas I think women.
We're designed to lift weights, damn it. We know what we're doing.
Instinctively know, you know. But no, and I think women are more.
Maybe detail oriented.
It might be generalizing, but I think
of course.
they tend to respect the specialist a little bit more. Like, I hired this person for that, and that's what they're smarter than us in that way, you know.
Right.
So I'm all about outsourcing now. I get the power of the outsource. There's so many things I suck at, so just have someone else do it.
What else do you like to do besides get down and dirty in the gym? I think I see you outdoors quite a bit.
I like the outdoors. I haven't done as much as I'd like recently, but we're gonna start. It takes away from my training, man.
Oh man,
so that's the part that's a little. So I love the outdoors. I like simple things. I love to write. That's probably the biggest thing. It's like, to me, just like sitting down and getting in my thoughts. That's probably
writing down whatever.
It can be so much. Like, sometimes it's
poetry.
Like, it's sometimes it can be. I'm not going to share it ever, but sometimes we go through. It's
Come on, bro.
I'll send you one. It'll be dedicated to you. Yeah. So I honestly, by nature a very introverted person. I can put on the act, but like after this, I'm gonna be toast. I'm gonna be in my hotel room like shaking, you know. But so yeah, I like my time alone. I like getting in my own head, and that's why I like the outdoors, because it's like, hey, it's just like you. There's something about that too, because that's how we were meant to do that, and we don't do that, you know. It's like, have a dog in an apartment all day. Take that dude to the park, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's being alone in different settings where I can get in my own head is probably my favorite thing.
Well, there's so much to that. You go outside, and you feel the coldness on your skin.
Yeah. And
without you doing or saying anything, your skin or your hair stands up. Yeah. You know, and you get like a chill.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like, well, you get a chill because it's cold outside, but you can't make yourself have that chill. You can't make yourself feel that.
No.
The different things that you feel when you go outside, you feel the warmth of the sun. Like, the sun has a very direct and distinct feel to it. Just the smell in the air, the wind, like all these things, they play into your mind quite a bit. I that's why I always preach to people, you know, hit up these 10-minute walks.
Yeah.
And try to just I know it's like getting cold in certain parts of the country, but figure out a time that you can get outside. Try to get outside and just freaking move around.
Yeah, no, it's cruel to yourself if you don't do that, I feel. It really is.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. What about movies, TV, and any of that stuff? Video games?
No, I'm not. No. I like sports, but I see sports from a different angle now. So I was born in the Bay Area, so the Warriors were, they sucked growing up. And like now there's all these bandwagon like Warriors fans, and I can't stand them because it's like they're new, you know.
Yeah.
But so like when they were playing the Cavaliers and LeBron in the finals, I was actually cheering for LeBron, because I'm like, I'm gonna go with the team or the result that I think would have or embody the athletic performance that I want to see the most.
Right.
So if like he would have done that, like to me, I get a lot of inspiration from other athletes. I want to
just see people shoot 3-pointers all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was like, if he does this, like he's going to be in a wheelchair and with like gray hair, but it'll be pretty dope to see. So I love sports, but I like to see him more so. I like to get inspired and I'm like, man, like this freak athlete just like laid it all out on the line. Right. I get a lot from that.
What about music?
Oh yeah. I love music. Everything.
You throw on some headphones when you're outdoors, or you kind of just take it in on your own?
I like to clean to music. That's probably the best. Yeah.
Cleaning?
Yeah. Lifting, I music's
I'll
optional.
give you some headphones. You can clean the gym.
You can keep it very clean, man.
I know. We gotta keep it tidy in there.
It
You know?
looks spot on,
I
as
think
it should be.
I think it's Smokey cracking that whip.
Smokey, you do a good job, bro. It looks immaculate.
He's keeping it clean in there.
He's just yelling at people to keep it clean, though.
Yeah, no, he's not actually cleaning anything.
No.
Okay. Well, never mind Smokey. His workers are fucking spot on.
There you go.
Anything else over there, buddy?
No, I'm good, man.
All right. Well, where can people find you?
3dmusclejourney.com. All of us coaches, we're also, I think the platform we use the most, because it's probably the best one right now, is Instagram. So you can
The grams.
Yeah, on the gram. I do the story thing a lot. I like to.
Oh, before we go,
Yeah.
I got a major concern here. I noticed some, like, I know that you're supposed to be a natural athlete, but some of the photos you've been posting recently, I'm starting to notice some growth of the breast area, and that's usually indicative of somebody that uses stuff like gynecomastia, right? Like,
Yeah.
So what's the deal? I mean,
That's just where I hold my fat. I hold my fat in my
in your
breast
titties.
and my penis, and that's where it all goes in the off season.
Yeah. In the head of the penis and in the head of the boobs, huh?
So I was photoshopping pictures, and people they were being really nice. Like, no one said anything. They were just like clap me up, and I'm like, "Did you not notice it?" And they're like, "I just didn't want to say anything. I didn't notice it." So people were actually very courteous about it. I stopped though. I stopped because I had this one teenager.
People are getting concerned.
Well, he reached out to me. This teen reached out to me. He's like, I have bitch tits, and I'm like, I don't want to make someone feel bad about the way they look. So,
oh man.
So even if it's one, usually I'm not very like, hey, if you get offended, move on, dude. You know.
Yeah.
But
that's a kid.
That's a kid. So it was a little different. So
yeah, it's different when it comes from a kid.
So no, I'm rock solid there. The nipples can cut glass, but I'm rock solid.
Can you show us?
No,
you don't
no,
need to.
no,
You don't need
no.
to. You don't need to show us those big
They're
old.
just gonna see the guy now.
All right, strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.